Hey detectives! Welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Hutchings. Nicole Hutchings, known as Nikki to her family and friends, was born on June 15, 1983, in San Francisco, California. Although her biological father was no longer in the picture, her stepfather, James Hutchings, stepped in and formed a deep bond with her, like that of a natural father and daughter. From an early age, James cared for Nicole as if she were his own child, earning the affectionate nickname Dad from her. Over time, the family grew with the addition of two more children, Amanda and Timothy. After James left the Marine Corps in 1987, he and his wife Robin decided to raise their family in a quieter environment. They moved to Bend, Oregon, where Nicole saw her first snowfall. The Hutchings family settling into a quaint 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house on the edge of the Deschutes River. The river flowed right into their backyard, providing endless fishing opportunities. Nicole's parents once took her to Drake Park, a popular green space in the city known for its year-round events like musical evenings and outdoor movie screenings. It was also a perfect place for peaceful walks in nature. When Nicole saw duck sculptures for the first time and was still learning to speak, she lovingly called her grandfather Grandpa Duck. As she grew older, the park remained dear to her and continued to be her favorite spot in the city. Eager to learn, Nicole was excited about gaining new knowledge. She also loved hiking, crafting, and writing poems. She attended Mountain View Middle School, where she was popular among her peers, although her bluntness sometimes led to conflicts. One major incident resulted in her expulsion. Nicole completed her schooling in 2004 and returned home. The Hutchings family valued their time together at home. By then, they had moved to a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, just a 15-minute drive from their old place, in a busier suburban area at the end of a cul-de-sac. The Hutchings home provided stunning views of the mountains, especially as Halloween, also known as All Saints' Day, drew near. The children in Bend, like those across the United States, loved dressing up for trick-or-treating. Almost every house was decorated, and residents enthusiastically prepared candy to welcome costumed kids at their doors. By now, the Hutchings children had grown older and were more interested in parties and celebrations than trick-or-treating. Nicole was 21, Amanda was 17, and Timothy had just turned 13. On the evening of Sunday, October 31, 2004, Amanda was getting ready for her shift at a nearby department store, planning to finish around 8 p.m. Since she didn't have a driver's license, she relied on her parents or Nicole for a ride home. Although the store was close by, Amanda was reluctant to walk home alone after dark, especially on Halloween, so she asked Nicole to pick her up. However, Nicole planned to stay home handing out candy. Their dad, James, who worked as a bus driver, offered to pick Amanda up, prioritizing her safety. Before Amanda left, Nicole, with a serious expression, mentioned she wanted to discuss something important with Amanda when she returned. The day began normally, with Robin and Nicole happily handing out candy to visiting children. After James came home and had dinner, he went out to pick up Amanda and run some errands. By 10 p.m., when the doorbell rang again, it seemed too late for young visitors. With Robin busy, Nicole answered the door and was pleasantly surprised to find several of her friends. They were on their way to a nearby Halloween party at a friend's house and wanted Nicole to join them. Nicole was excited to join the holiday festivities. She told her mother about her plans to spend the evening with friends. Robin, comfortable with her daughter's independence, trusted Nicole's responsible nature. She wished her a great time and let her go to the celebration without worry. Little did she know, this farewell would be the last time she saw Nicole's joyful smile. The celebration was filled with both familiar and unfamiliar faces, all apparently enjoying the festivities. Nicole, came in her everyday clothes because she didn't have time to dress up. The atmosphere was lively with loud music, and the attendees were involved in typical youthful activities, drinking, dancing, and celebrating until the early hours of November 1st. As the excitement of the mysterious night faded and life returned to its usual pace, the Hutchings family started their day with their regular morning routines. During this time, James noticed that Nicole was missing. Her bedroom was empty. He had come home the night before with Amanda and assumed Nicole was asleep. Robin informed him that Nicole had gone to a Halloween party, so James initially thought she might be sleeping at a friend's house and expected her to return or call by midday. However, her belongings, including her bag and documents, were untouched in her room, a clear sign of her unexpected departure. Worried, her parents began calling Nicole's friends, hoping to find clues about where she might be. They spent the night trying to locate her, a step that preceded the tough decision to call the police. Despite all efforts, Nicole's whereabouts remained a mystery. At this juncture, the Hutchings family was overwhelmed with a sense of fear, which led them to contact the Bend Police Department. At the station, they were informed that Halloween night is known as one of the worst of the year due to a significant spike in criminal activity. During this time, there are many car break-ins, acts of vandalism, alcohol-related crimes, violence, and even deadly crimes. The police usually don't respond immediately to reports of missing adults, as many return after a short time. However, the fact that Nicole's money and ID were still at home raised concern. The Bend police knew that Nicole was 21 years old, stood 5 feet 5 inches, weighed 159 pounds, and had brown hair and blue eyes. Other distinguishing features included a small gap between her front teeth, a pierced tongue, and tattoos of a rose and a dolphin on the back of her left shoulder. She was last seen wearing a dark burgundy polo shirt with an emblem, black pants, and white sneakers. Detective Brian Kendall from the Bend Police Department met with the Hutchings family to draft a detailed report. He talked with Robin, Amanda, and James, who shared their perspectives. Amanda said her sister wanted to talk about something important that evening. The parents told the detective about Nicole's ex-boyfriend, Bobby. At first, the family liked Bobby because he seemed charming and got along well with them. However, they later suspected he was hiding his true personality, especially in relation to Nicole. Detective Brian decided to investigate Bobby further. He planned to ask Nicole's friends about the Halloween party, including who organized it and who attended. Currently, the Hutchings family was deeply worried because there had been no news about Nicole for over a day. When the detectives met Bobby, they asked him about Nicole. He claimed he wasn't keeping track of his ex-partner, as they had broken up just the previous weekend. Although the detectives were doubtful, a lie detector test showed he was telling the truth. It was later confirmed that he had an alibi for Halloween night, leading the authorities to look for other leads. The Bend police issued a statement asking for any information about Nicole and urging the public to contact Detective Brian. A woman named Mary provided key information. She mentioned that her housemates, Loren Bowers and Craig Whiting, hosted the Halloween party that Nicole attended. Loren had a girlfriend with 2 kids, one 6 years old and the other 4. Nicole used to visit them often to look after the kids, and that's how she met Mary. At the party, everything seemed normal. Many people came and went throughout the night, with some bringing friends along. However, the detectives now had 2 people they could contact. After getting their addresses, the police officers approached Loren and Craig for more information. They spoke with Lauren's 30-year-old girlfriend, and Craig was identified as a close friend of the Hutchings family. They often visited in the evenings to invite Nicole to parties. Craig remembered last seeing her at the party around midnight, a time when everyone was drinking heavily, so no one knew where she went afterward. Although their friends were really worried about her safety, they still hoped she'd come back. Unfortunately, she'd vanished without a trace since the incident. Investigators questioned other attendees of the event, but nobody could remember exactly when she had left. Despite not having concrete answers, they continued their investigation and decided to expand the search beyond state borders. Nicole's photo and detailed information about her disappearance were shared with law enforcement agencies across the country. With no new leads, the investigators chose to examine the backgrounds of both the residents of the house where the party took place and the guests. It was crucial to start their inquiry somewhere. Craig had a clean criminal record, but Loren was involved in a questionable incident related to Nicole. Surprisingly, it was revealed that a man had been a convicted offender 10 years prior. Loren, now 34 years old, had been accused of contributing to the delinquency of minors. He admitted his past wrongdoings to Detective Brian and offered to help in finding Nicole as a way to demonstrate his reformed character. Although this information was concerning, there was no direct evidence linking Loren to Nicole's disappearance. The investigation was still in the early stages of gathering information. Meanwhile, Nicole's family started a community search in Bend. They distributed flyers with her photo and details, contacted local media, and urged anyone with information to report it to the authorities. Reports emerged of sightings of her in different parts of the city, though none were confirmed. Despite this, these reports gave the Hutchings family some hope. James, who works as a bus driver, would carefully check Drake Park, Nicole's favorite local spot, every time he passed by, hoping to see her. Accepting her disappearance was difficult for the family, who held on to the hope of her return. Every knock on the door brought the hope that it might be Nicole, but it never was. The situation took a dark turn when an informant revealed to the police that a man known as Spider had confessed to friends that he killed Nicole and hid her body on his property. Spider's real name is Danny Shane, a criminal linked to a local gang called the Park Rats, infamous for their illegal activities in Bend, particularly around Drake Park. Nicole and Danny had known each other since high school, although Danny had changed a lot since then. The police questioned him. Although they did not know what his motive was for lying about killing Nicole, he was released after passing a lie detector test. Continue the investigation. The investigators monitored Nicole's financial and digital footprints, like her credit card, bank account, and cell phone. After months of effort, they detected activity on one of Nicole's cards, sparking a glimmer of hope that she might be alive. However, this hope quickly faded when Nicole's mother, Robin, revealed that she had been using her daughter's credit card. Over time, interactions with the detectives became less frequent, reflecting the stagnation of the case. Life for the Hutchings family members becomes dull after Nicole's murder. Amanda completed her high school education and applied to various colleges, including the University of Minnesota. She awaited acceptance letters, but her college aspirations seemed trivial after her sister went missing. Eventually, she received news that she had been accepted to the University of Minnesota with a full scholarship. Although this news was joyful, she felt she couldn't leave her family during such a difficult time. The story of Nicole Hutchins' disappearance was fully uncovered only after 3 long years. It became clear that someone was hiding crucial information, fully aware of the events that had occurred, but lacking the courage to speak the truth. In March 2007, a woman named Jenny came to the Bend police station to speak with the detective in charge of investigating Nicole's murder. Jenny, who was once in a relationship with Loren and had 2 children with him, was motivated by their tumultuous history and breakup to reveal what she knew. As an old acquaintance of Nicole, Jenny was initially interviewed after Nicole disappeared, but she lied to protect herself. Later, she disclosed that Loren, her ex, had confessed to killing Nicole, although there was no physical evidence or remains to support his claim at that time. The detectives came up with a plan, getting Jenny to secretly record a conversation with Loren using a hidden microphone to question him about Nicole. They arranged the meeting in a park where Jenny, under a lot of pressure, asked about Nicole's fate. Loren, initially suspicious, eventually confessed to Jenny. Because of Jenny's previous silence, he justified his actions by claiming that Nicole was a threat to their relationship and that he couldn't risk going back to jail. She eventually gets a confession out of him. Loren was arrested on March 12 to help protect Jenny from potential consequences. Further investigations revealed that Loren had 2 previous convictions for sexual assault, leading to a 2-year prison sentence. His victims were between the ages of 13 and 16. After his release in 1997, Loren briefly violated his parole and was later convicted for unlawful possession of a firearm, theft, and giving false information to police during arrest. Loren emotionally denied any role in Nicole's disappearance, accusing his friend Craig of setting him up. This accusation was later confirmed to be true. Craig, a close family friend of the Hutchings who had lived with them for a while, came to pick up Nicole on that Halloween evening. He takes a deep breath and reveals that Loren asked him to help kill Nicole. Craig explained that Nicole had been spreading rumors about Loren, accusing him of inappropriately touching one of the children she babysat. If these rumors became public, Loren would end up back in prison. Nicole learned from the children that Loren had acted inappropriately, including taking a nude photo of one child. This was a grave allegation with potentially serious repercussions. Nicole then informed the child's mother about the situation and filed a formal complaint with the Oregon Department of Human Services. Facing the possibility of returning to prison, Loren decided to take drastic measures. How did Craig fit into all of this? It turned out that Craig had a disturbing childhood experience that deeply affected his mind. When he was 11, his mother's partner beat her to death and hid her body in the basement under their trailer, where they lived next to the decomposing remains for several weeks. This probably left a mark on Craig's life forever. Nevertheless, he justified his actions regarding Nicole by claiming that Loren was like a brother to him. If a brother asked for help, he felt compelled to do everything for him. After a few days, Craig finally agreed to show the detectives where Nicole's body was buried. By doing this, he avoided the death penalty, but he showed no remorse or compassion. The location was deep in a forest, about 20 miles from the Halloween party. Craig led the police to a spot among the trees where he claimed Nicole had died. In a shallow grave, officers discovered what they believed to be the remains of Nicole. She had done everything she could to protect an innocent child and ensure their safety, only to fall victim to someone who chose to silence her rather than face the consequences of his terrible actions. According to Craig's testimony, already in October 2004, Loren, along with his best friend Craig, came up with a plan to get rid of Nicole. To execute their plan, they organized a large Halloween party right before the incident. They traveled to a remote location and dug a shallow grave about 3 feet deep. On Halloween, Craig lured Nicole away from her home and brought her to the party. They drugged her drink with a painkiller, leaving her barely able to stand or move. Completely incapacitated, her friends put her in a car with Loren driving and took her to the planned burial site. Nicole, weak and vulnerable, was led to a temporary burial site. There, Loren struck her head with a bat that had a heavy metal tip. Craig thought one blow would knock her out, but it only caused Nicole to stumble, and she tried to get up again. Loren then grabbed a branch and repeatedly hit her until she lost consciousness. Before Nicole stopped breathing, they stripped her and threw her into the pit, covering it with thick soil. The most tragic part of this story is that Nicole was still alive at that point, dying alone in the dense woods, betrayed by 2 people she trusted on that horrific night. When the Hutchings family was informed about Nicole's death, her parents were stunned. Craig, whom they had welcomed into their home, and Loren, a friend of Nicole, shocked them with their actions. James will never forget the moment he identified his daughter's dolphin emblem at the coroner's office. He expressed his desire to personally confront the culprits. However, legal restrictions made it impossible. Years passed before Loren and Craig admitted their guilt for the brutal attack, each receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The tragic story of Nicole Hutchings serves as a haunting reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating consequences of betrayal. As her family navigated the painful aftermath of her disappearance, they uncovered a chilling narrative of deceit and violence that forever altered their lives. Nicole's legacy now stands as a testament to the importance of speaking out against wrongdoing, ensuring that her courageous act of protecting the innocent is never forgotten. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Katrina Ashley Edlund Smith. Katrina Ashley Edlund was born on July 16, 1982, to her mother Vicky. She had two siblings, an older brother named Chad and a younger sister named Miranda, who looked up to Katrina as a role model. As children, Miranda would often try on Katrina's clothes and use her makeup, admiring her older sister and wanting to be just like her. As the years passed, Katrina and Miranda formed a strong bond, becoming more like best friends than sisters. Katrina grew up in Musney Park, Illinois, a suburban community outside the city, after her parents separated, and she lived with her mother. Those who knew Katrina described her as a kind, fun-loving person who cherished the holiday season and enjoyed giving humorous gifts to her friends and family. She was deeply involved in her church and had a strong desire to help others, always willing to lend a hand to those in need. Despite her happiness, Katrina longed to find love and thought she had found it when she met Todd Smith at a bar when she was 20 years old. Todd, a self-employed financial planner, had 3 daughters and worked from home. He met Katrina, and despite their differences, they clicked. Todd's flexible schedule allowed them to travel frequently. After 3 years together, Todd proposed to Katrina, and she happily accepted. They planned a small wedding in a local park, and Katrina was thrilled about their future. She loved Todd's daughters and was eager to build a life with him. Katrina's family, including her mother Vicky and siblings Chad and Miranda, adored Todd and thought he was an excellent match for Katrina. They trusted him to take care of her and believed the couple was meant to be. After marrying, Katrina and Todd settled in Musney Park and started their new life together. On October 20th, 2012, Katrina, 30, called her mother and said she was house-sitting for a friend. During their conversation, she mentioned she would visit for dinner on October 24th and had news to share. Vicky suspected that something was amiss, but she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. Before ending their phone call, Vicky promised Katrina that she would cook her favorite meal, chicken and dumplings. Tragically, Vicky would never get the chance to keep that promise. Days later, Katrina vanished, and Vicky would never lay eyes on her again. On October 23rd, at 5 p.m., Todd, Katrina's husband, called 911 to report her disappearance. He told the dispatcher that Katrina was house-sitting for a friend and that he had been trying to reach her for hours without success. When he drove to the house, he found it empty. Katrina's siblings, Miranda and Chad, were alarmed when they heard the news. Chad, who was undergoing military training in Oklahoma, immediately flew to Illinois to help search for his sister. On the evening of the 23rd, a concerned citizen notified the police about an abandoned vehicle near Rock River. The caller reported that the car was not parked on the road, but rather in an easement, suggesting it had been hastily abandoned. When authorities arrived to investigate, they ran the license plate and identified it as belonging to Katrina Smith. Upon inspecting the vehicle, the officer found no signs of a struggle or any trace of Katrina herself. Katrina's mother, Vicky, was adamant that her daughter's disappearance was a clear indication of foul play when she learned that Katrina's car had been abandoned in an unfamiliar area. It was the only logical explanation to Vicky, If Katrina's car was found in that location, someone must have taken her and left the car there. Following the discovery of her car, Katrina's case was officially categorized as a missing person, and the search efforts intensified significantly. On October 12th, at 11 p.m., the police took Todd Smith in for a formal interview at the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department. During the interview, Todd told the detective that he last saw his wife Katrina on October 10th, not October 22nd. He stated that Katrina had come home briefly to do laundry in preparation for a big job interview the following day. According to Todd, while the laundry was in progress, Katrina left to go to the mall to make a purchase and returned home at 8:30 p.m. Todd reported that Katrina briefly returned home before leaving again to make one last stop. She had told him she needed to complete an errand before returning to the house she was watching for a friend. The next day, after Katrina was declared missing, Todd made an emotional appeal to the media, pleading for her safe return. Overcome with emotion, he broke down in tears as he begged for anyone with information about her whereabouts to come forward. As the search for Katrina continued, search teams composed of officers and volunteers worked tirelessly to find her. They focused their efforts on a nearby park, where Katrina's car had been abandoned, hoping to find evidence or clues about her disappearance. When Katrina's brother Chad arrived in Illinois from his army training in Oklahoma, he joined the search for his missing sister at the park. With his military background, Chad took charge of the search party. He created a map, divided the volunteers into teams, and coordinated their efforts to ensure a thorough search. As the search continued, the officers employed a methodical approach, using dogs and walking in straight lines to cover as much ground as possible and detect any potential evidence, no matter how small. Meanwhile, Katrina's mother Vicky focused on spreading awareness about her daughter's disappearance. She posted missing person flyers at gas stations, convenience stores, and lampposts throughout the town, hoping to reach as many people as possible. Despite her overwhelming grief and fear of finding her daughter's body, Vicky was determined to keep searching for Katrina, even if she couldn't participate in the physical search herself. Todd, Katrina's husband, was overcome with emotion during this difficult time. Chad, trying to be supportive, urged Todd to stay strong and focused on finding Katrina. He stood by Todd's side, sympathetic to his brother-in-law's grief. Meanwhile, the police investigation turned up some disturbing clues. An officer found Katrina's purse near her abandoned car, and as he searched further down the road, he discovered more of her belongings, including her cell phone and bloody towels. It was clear that someone had deliberately discarded Katrina's possessions as they drove away from her car. Unfortunately, the police still had no idea where Katrina was, but they feared the worst. The recovered items were sent to the crime lab for analysis, and the police awaited the results with bated breath. As the police searched for clues, they explored every aspect of Katrina's personal life to understand what might have led to her disappearance. They wanted to know if she had any relationships outside her marriage, was involved in gambling or drugs, and what her daily routines were like. To gather this information, they interviewed her friends and family. Everyone they spoke to described Katrina as a kind, responsible person who always put her duties first and avoided anything risky. Her loved ones said she was dedicated to her job and had a strong work ethic. They also reported that she never showed any signs of addiction or irresponsible behavior. The people who knew Katrina described her as a loyal partner and a hard worker who always did the right thing. During the investigation into her disappearance, a woman came forward with an interesting clue. She claimed to have seen a blue car, similar to Katrina's, parked on a bridge over Rock River on the night she vanished. The trunk was open, and someone was kneeling behind it. Although the witness couldn't describe the person's gender or race, her tip led the police to suspect that Katrina might have been a victim of foul play and ended up in the river. However, they still needed concrete evidence to support this theory. The police continued to investigate Katrina's disappearance, looking into potential motives and suspects. Despite seeming to have a happy marriage, her husband Todd was still a person of interest. As the authorities knew that hidden conflicts or secrets can exist in any relationship, their inquiry led them to a teenager in town who had previously shown an unhealthy obsession with Katrina. Earlier in the year, Katrina had confided in friends about the boy's behavior, including allegations of voyeurism, such as spying on her through her bedroom window. This had made Katrina increasingly anxious at the time. Although the boy's activities had stopped when he left for college, the police wondered if he might have returned and resumed stalking Katrina. They devoted significant resources to finding him. 3 days into the search, crucial clues were discovered on Katrina's cell phone, which was being examined at the crime lab. The phone proved to be a crucial source of evidence for the investigators. By examining Katrina's cell phone records, they uncovered a wealth of information, including her text messages, call logs, pictures, videos, and GPS location data. This information enabled the police to reconstruct a more accurate timeline of Katrina's activities. The investigation revealed that Katrina was having an affair with a co-worker, Guy Gabriel. Initially, they had met after work and developed a connection that eventually turned romantic. However, a background check on Guy Gabriel exposed a troubling history of domestic violence. Additionally, the detectives found text messages in which Guy Gabriel demanded that Katrina leave her husband Todd for him. Given Guy Gabriel's violent past and his messages to Katrina, he became the top suspect in her disappearance. The police suspected that Guy Gabriel might have reacted violently towards Katrina because she refused to leave her husband for him. When Katrina's family discovered her affair with Guy, they were shocked and disbelieving. The seemingly perfect couple, Katrina and Todd, had hidden a dark secret. The news of Katrina's infidelity devastated Todd, who was unaware of the affair until the police investigation. Guy Gabriel was questioned by the police at the station, and although he appeared nervous, he admitted to the affair, but denied any involvement in Katrina's disappearance. He claimed to have been at work on the night she went missing. During the investigation, the police uncovered an incident that had occurred 2 weeks before Katrina's disappearance. Witnesses reported that a black Volkswagen Jetta had sped through the parking lot of the auto shop where Katrina and Guy worked, causing a scene during lunchtime. A mysterious driver in a VW Jetta threw a stack of flyers out of the car's sunroof, scattering them among the employees gathered outside. The flyers contained a derogatory remark about Katrina and Guy Gabriel's relationship, but the identity of the driver remained unknown. Meanwhile, the police questioned Katrina's hairstylist, who shared that Katrina had confided in her about feeling unsafe and threatened. Katrina had even considered buying a gun for protection, and had become paranoid about being followed. She had gone so far as to take her phone to a store to check for a tracking device, suspecting that someone was monitoring her movements. At the police garage, crime scene investigators searched Katrina's car for clues and used a special chemical called luminol to detect blood. They found a large amount of blood in the trunk. Meanwhile, a firefighter pulled a mysterious object from the water, which turned out to be a severely decomposed female body. The body was difficult to identify due to its condition. At the medical examiner's office, dental experts compared the body's teeth to Katrina Smith's dental records and confirmed that the body belonged to her. The autopsy revealed that Katrina's cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Katrina's family was devastated by the news, and her mother, Vicky, was in disbelief. The police cleared the teenage boy who had been allegedly stalking Katrina as a suspect after verifying his alibi. The police then turned their attention to Guy Gabriel, Katrina's boyfriend outside of her marriage. Guy provided an alibi, claiming he was at work during the time of Katrina's disappearance and murder. His managers and co-workers corroborated his alibi, and the police cleared him as a suspect. Although Guy was no longer a suspect, the police asked for his perspective on who may have hurt Katrina. Guy revealed that Katrina's husband, Todd, exhibited controlling behavior and encouraged Katrina to leave her marriage. The police investigated Katrina's marriage and discovered several concerning details, including Katrina's desire to divorce Todd, her meeting with a divorce attorney, and her separation from Todd. The police suspected Todd of being behind the mysterious flyer incident at Katrina's workplace. Their suspicion grew stronger when they discovered that Todd had test-driven a black Jetta, similar to the car involved in the flyer incident, around the same time it occurred. When the police informed Katrina's family that Todd was the prime suspect in her murder and was already in custody, they were shocked and devastated. Katrina's mother, Vicky, was particularly affected, feeling physically ill at the thought that Todd could be responsible for her daughter's murder. The police also discovered that Todd's financial investment company was facing legal troubles, providing a potential motive for the crime. Katrina was the sole breadwinner for her family since Todd was unemployed. The police suspected that Todd might have motive to kill his wife, as he would gain access to their funds if she left him and their daughters. To gather evidence, the police obtained a search warrant for the couple's home. During the search, they found a baseball bat in the garage with brays of blood on it, which led them to believe it might be the murder weapon. The autopsy revealed that Katrina's injuries were consistent with blunt force trauma, suggesting a bat was used. A DNA test confirmed that the blood on the bat was Katrina's, linking the bat to the crime. The police also found a clean area under the car, which seemed suspicious. Further examination revealed that the bloodstains matched Katrina's DNA profile. 30 days after Katrina's murder, Todd was arrested and charged with her killing, bringing relief to her family. At his trial, the prosecution presented evidence that Katrina had recently visited a divorce attorney, indicating marital problems. On the night of the murder, Katrina had gone to Todd's house to do laundry for a job interview the next morning. The prosecution alleged that Katrina told Todd their marriage was over, triggering his violent reaction. They claimed that Todd grabbed a baseball bat, killed Katrina in the garage, and then disposed of her body by throwing it off a bridge at Rock River. The jury found Todd guilty and sentenced him to 55 years in prison. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Marbella Valdez. One was born in Tijuana, Mexico's second largest city, located in the state of Baja California. In 2020, when this case was being developed, one was 40 years old and owned a cleaning company. Although this was his main job, he seemed to have a true passion for the security sector. On one occasion, he interned at the forensic office of the state prosecutor's office. He is still passionate about being a law enforcement officer. Occasionally, he would even go out on the streets dressed in a police uniform. In August 2019, one met a 20-year-old girl named Marbella Valdez. She has a sweet and cheerful personality. She is often called Bella by her family and friends. As a child, she experienced many hardships. At the age of 5, she was sent to an orphanage. She continued to spend the following years in such facilities. According to local pastor David Lopez, who was present when the girl was admitted to the orphanage, she quickly demonstrated her kind nature and goodwill. This helped her win love and respect from the other children, as well as from the staff there. Although facing many difficulties, Marbella still feels optimistic and loves life. At the orphanage, she made friends like Brenda Valdez and Jairo Solana. Brenda became very close to her. Pastor David observed that they were often playing together and always by each other's side during various activities. They always love, help, and protect each other. Brenda took on the role of an older sister who was always there for her. Over time, Marbella started dreaming of a better future and successfully completed both primary and secondary school. She was considered a good student and actively participated in youth religious groups. She realized that progress comes from studying and working hard, so she started selling sweets to her schoolmates at the age of 16 and did extra work as a house cleaner. Fortunately, on her journey to success, Marbella had support. William Messick, an American IT executive, had been helping her and Brenda for some time. In 2014, he started a program to aid orphans from Tijuana, Mexico. His idea is to help children during the most difficult and vulnerable stages of their lives, until they are mature enough to face life on their own. Having been an orphan himself, William understood their struggles. His project included a scholarship program. After meeting Brenda, they formed a close bond, like father and daughter. Brenda told him about her friend, Marbella, from the orphanage, and soon he included Marbella in his program. In 2018, Marbella graduated from high school. She then enrolled at the Autonomous University of Baja California to pursue her dream of becoming a lawyer, with a focus on protecting children's rights. As she entered adulthood, William helped both Marbella and Brenda rent an apartment. Later, when she expressed her desire to live independently, and William once again supported her, acknowledging her maturity and sense of responsibility. During this time, she started university and also looked for a job to support herself. With William's help, she even purchased a car to commute easily between work, university, and home. Marbella started working at a gas station owned by Randy Chicas, a Mexican company that supports women. Her shift began at 5:30 a.m. and ended at noon. After lunch, she would head to the university to study law. Despite her packed schedule, but she made time for church services. It was at the gas station that she met Juan, who owned a cleaning company. One day, he stopped by to fill up the company car. He was immediately attracted by the friendliness and charm of Marbella. From then on, he made it a point to visit the station almost daily, filling up his cars and trying to strike up a conversation with Marbella. She treated him with the same courtesy and smile she gave to all her other customers. Soon, Juan started giving Marbella gifts, such as sweets, toys, and chocolate. He even brought breakfast for her and other female employees. She told William, who she thought of as her father, about Juan's actions. William warned Marbella to be careful since Juan was much older. However, she said she wasn't interested in Juan. For she, a 20-year-old girl, the attention of an older person like Juan seemed funny and even ridiculous. Her colleagues also found the situation funny. Everyone considered Juan to be a friendly and respectable person, not a threat to young girls. Marbella made it clear she wasn't interested in Juan and often turned down his invitations to meet. Juan didn't take these rejections well, and his behavior started to change. Marbella noticed that Juan would often follow her after her shift at the gas station. He seemed to always know her whereabouts and would appear, asking her to go with him. There were times when she suspected he of following her home. She mentioned this strange behavior to her colleagues. On Wednesday, February 5, 2020, Marbella failed to show up for work at the gas station and did not contact anyone to explain her absence. Marbella and her friend Brenda, although not living together, would meet up several times a week. Brenda had a young son whom Marbella adored and visited often. They would talk on the phone daily. Brenda, who worked the night shift, would usually call Marbella every morning after returning home. That Wednesday, Brenda and Marbella didn't talk as usual. Brenda woke up around 9 a.m. to find a message from Marbella saying she had a stomach ache and wouldn't be going to work. Instead, she planned to see a doctor. This message worried Brenda for two reasons: her health and the unusual manner in which the message was written. It was also strange that she didn't call. Brenda tried to reach Marbella but couldn't, so she contacted their mutual friends. However, none of them had any information about Marbella's whereabouts. The group of friends began searching for Marbella in local hospitals and medical centers, but they couldn't find her anywhere. Brenda and one of her friends decided to visit Marbella's house. They knocked on the door and rang the bell, but there was no answer. Normally, Marbella would leave a window slightly open for her friends to come and go. This time, the window was wide open. Brenda climbed in through the window and found the interior of the house looking as if Marbella had just come home from university. Her belongings, including books, clothes, bag, and car keys, were all in their usual places. However, Marbella is missing. Throughout the day, they searched various locations but found nothing. According to Brenda, they went to the police to report Marbella missing. However, because Marbella was an adult, police regulations required waiting 3 days before launching an official search. Despite this, an investigation began right away. Brenda and her friends started making flyers with Marbella's photo. Marbella was described as a young girl with brown eyes, long straight chestnut red hair, dark skin, a slim build, a height of 1.50 meters, and a weight of 45 kilograms. They posted and distributed these flyers throughout the city. At the same time, William used his network of contacts to launch a search campaign for Marbella. Along with Brenda, they even attempted to hack into Marbella's phone to determine her location, but this was unsuccessful. In a later interview, Brenda mentioned that even Juan's behavior became more suspicious. 3 days after Marbella's disappearance, on February 8th, the police received a call from a man who reported finding a woman's body in a dump in the Colonia Te Colet area. This location was over 26 miles from Marbella's house in southern Tijuana and was so remote. It took the police a long time to locate this site, but they eventually arrived. Among a pile of garbage, they discovered a large black bag containing the body of a young woman. She was dressed in blue pajamas with images of black puppies and animal print slippers. The body was almost face down, with the legs tied with a yellow cord and the hands tied behind the back with a pink scarf wrapped. The body was taken to the morgue for examination, while investigators collected evidence at the scene. After finding the body, police informed Brenda that the body's characteristics matched the description of Marbella. Brenda and William immediately went to the morgue, but were told they had to wait until the next day to examine the body. Juan unexpectedly appeared and helped them gain access to the morgue. Unfortunately, they determined that the body was that of Marbella. At that time, Juan did not know that Brenda and Marbella's friends had reported him to the police, as they suspected him of stalking Marbella. The police requested permission from Marbella's family to carry out a forensic examination and conduct other investigations to collect evidence. The examination of Marbella's remains took about 5 days. Mourning began on February 13, 2020, and continued until February 14. Juan attended the wake and funeral, he wearing a T-shirt with her image. This made her friends extremely angry. Despite their anger, they remained silent, follow the instructions of the authorities so that he does not become suspicious, as they feared he might escape before sufficient evidence was collected for his arrest. At Marbella's funeral, Jose Ruiz, a close friend of hers, spotted an individual with scratches on his neck. This man behaved strangely, repeatedly approaching the coffin, threatening people with a knife, and offered to carry flowers to the cemetery in his car. Meanwhile, police are still trying their best to investigate Marbella's death. Forensic results revealed that she died from asphyxia due to severe compression of her neck, which blocked her air supply. She also suffered serious blows to the abdomen, causing damage to her internal organs. In front of the University of Baja California, Marbella's classmates held a memorial in her memory. They emphasized that she was a victim of violence by men, a serious problem taking place across Mexico. The investigation into Marbella's killing included interviews with people who knew her. Through the interviews, it was learned that a few days before she was killed, she had spoken to Juan. He said that he was a federal police officer in Baja California and worked as a specialist at the Attorney General's office. However, it was discovered that he had only interned at the Attorney General's office. Additionally, some media outlets reported that he had a criminal record and was imprisoned for offenses related to illegal substances in the state of Sonora. The results of a search of Marbella's car were even more troubling, as experts found a hidden geolocation device. Later, a search of Juan's house uncovered several similar devices and satellite detection receivers. This explains why he always knows where she is. However, the most compelling evidence came from a forensic examination of the body, which revealed fingerprints and semen. DNA analysis confirmed that these matched the genetic sample taken from Juan when he was brought in for questioning. An analysis of Marbella's mobile phone showed that her phone and Juan's were always in the same locations during her disappearance. This shows that he used her phone to send messages to her friends. A few days after the funeral, Juan was charged with the murder of Marbella, and on February 22, 2020, he appeared in court for the first time. During this hearing, it was revealed that after her disappearance, he contacted the state attorney general's office several times to ask about the investigation's progress. He also expressed his wish that the person responsible for Marbella's death would not be punished. The authorities stated that Juan had always been the main suspect in the case, due to previous reported incidents of harassment. It was said that he was obsessed with Marbella, even though he had known her for only 5 months. Since then, he had been under police surveillance. According to the investigation, he allegedly entered her house and kidnapped her. The incident occurred between February 5th and 8th in the Sai Kotlef Aliman neighborhood, where Juan lived. There he kept she, exerting physical and sexual violence, which caused injuries to her face, stomach, and genitals, ultimately leading to her death. The conclusion in the case was that Marbella died of lack of oxygen, caused by compression of the neck, which blocked the airway and blood vessels. She also sustained severe bruising to her abdomen, causing damage to internal organs. Juan's DNA matched semen found in Marbella's body, and a considerable amount of tissue was found under her fingernails, indicating a struggle. During the hearing, mobile phone tracking data revealed that Juan and Marbella's phones were together starting from the morning of February 5th. The body was discovered at Marbella's home. Another important clue is that their phones were also together on February 2nd. This was also the day Marbella reported her house and car keys missing. On February 27th, at a hearing in the Superior Court of Tijuana, Judge Daniel Aguilar Patina concluded there is enough evidence to accuse Juan of killing Marbella. The judge highlighted that Juan deliberately misled everyone about Marbella's whereabouts, pretending to be worried in front of her family and at the gas station, while he actually knew what was going on. He was temporarily detained in MIAs, but maintained his innocence regarding. His trial occurred from September 14th to 29th, 2022. Over 2 years after the incident, forensic evidence and testimony from people close to Marbella were presented. It was discovered that on the morning Marbella went missing, a colleague had called her, noting that she had not been to the gas station. She only managed to say she was unwell before the connection was broken. Her friends described her as a wonderful person and identified Juan as a harasser. She never believed she was in danger, so she didn't file an official complaint against Juan. She thinking he would lose interest after her repeated rejections. Other witnesses mentioned that he often pretended to be a law enforcement officer, but he was just an intern at the University of Justice. After reviewing all the evidence and listening to the testimonies, Judge Marta Elvia Luna Vargas declared that Juan committed the horrendous crime, he that took Marbella's life. She then sentenced Juan to 42 years and 6 months in prison for the murder of Marbella Valdez. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Daniel Wozniak. Costa Mesa, California, is located between Los Angeles and San Diego on a coastal plateau overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Despite being an affluent area, it still retains the laid-back atmosphere of a beach town. No one expected this picturesque location to be the site of Julie Kibushi's tragic fate. Sam Har's parents, Stephen and Raquel, were worried when they realized they hadn't heard from him in a while. Sam was scheduled to visit them that weekend, but he never arrived. On May 22, 2010, his parents Stephen and Raquel went to Sam's apartment. When they arrived, they witnessed a horrifying scene. Stephen, in a panic, quickly called 911. During the call, he informed the police that there was a dead woman lying face down in his son's bedroom, her clothes partially torn and blood dripping from her forehead. "Do you know where your son is?" the dispatcher asked. "No, I don't," came the reply. But there was no sign of Sam anywhere. The case shocked the Costa Mesa community, where homicides are extremely rare. When police arrived at the apartment, they found no evidence of a struggle. The apartment was neat and showed no signs of a struggle. The space contained typical bachelor items like empty beer bottles, used cigarettes, and an outdoor grill, all of which were relatively clean and tidy. Until they entered the bedroom. In the bedroom, police found an unused knife on the nightstand and several books, including a fighting manual and another titled The Wonders of Sex. The most alarming discovery, however, was on the bed. It was covered in the victim's blood. The dead woman was lying partly on the bed and partly on the floor, her pants down, exposing her lower body. Police believe she may have been sexually assaulted before her death. She died of 2 gunshot wounds to the head, 1 to the top of her head. Although there was a knife on the nightstand, it did not appear to have been used. Curiously, she was wearing a crown, and the back of her sweater read, "All yours." Her purse was in the kitchen, and her driver's license identified the victim as 23-year-old Julie Kibushi. Julie was born on Valentine's Day 1987 to Japanese-American parents Jun and Masa Kibushi. She was the third of their 4 children. Her parents often called her "my Valentine girl." From an early age, Julie developed a strong interest in dance and music. Her mother said that Julie started tap dancing at the age of 5, and her passion for the sport continued to grow over the years. According to her friends and family, she was a very cheerful person. Her cheerful and bubbly personality brought laughter to everyone. She radiated positivity and often helped her friends when they were in trouble. While respecting her Japanese heritage, she also pursued a free-spirited, all-American lifestyle. After graduating from the Orange County School of the Arts, Julie pursued fashion design at Orange Coast Community College. There, she formed a close relationship with 26-year-old Sam Har and even tutored him in anthropology. Little did she know that her kindness would eventually lead to her tragic fate. As the police investigated the crime scene, they attempted to discover what happened to this energetic young woman, Julie. The evidence clearly pointed to Sam as her killer. Since she was found in his apartment and he was now missing, the police needed to dig deeper into Sam Har's life. Sam Har was born on May 29, 1983, in Los Angeles, California, to Stephen and Raquel Kalberman. As an only child, he received a lot of affection from his parents. His father was a special education teacher while his mother stayed home. Sam had a close relationship with his parents and visited them often. Sam was large and athletic, and friends described him as a big teddy bear. As a child, he enlisted in the United States Army, serving a tour of duty in both Afghanistan and Germany with the 173rd Airborne Division. After 3 years of service, he was discharged and returned to Southern California to take advantage of the GI Bill and finish college. Sam aimed to finish college and then re-enlist in the Army as an officer. Sam enrolled in Orange Coast Community College there. He became friends with Julie, who was 3 years younger than him. However, after 3 years in the Army, Sam developed PTSD, a common condition among veterans. Police wondered if he had lost control and committed the crime in a moment of intense emotion. When Julie was found dead in Sam's apartment and he was missing, detectives suspected that he had fled the scene after the murder. The situation became more suspicious when they discovered text messages on Julie's phone from Sam. At around 2:45 p.m. on May 21, 2010, Sam texted Julie to say he was going to help a friend and then come to his parents' house. However, just 2 hours later, his text messages changed. He contacted her multiple times, begging her to come over. The urgency in his messages made it clear that something was wrong. Concerned about her friend, Julie agreed to visit him, expressing her willingness to support him as family. Sam's messages showed that he had planned her visit. Furthermore, Sam's car and passport were missing from the apartment, leading the police to suspect that he was trying to evade arrest. With both his passport and car missing, it seemed that Sam would soon be identified as the killer. However, the police would soon discover that the situation was more complicated than it appeared. Back in 2002, when Sam was 18, he was charged with the murder along with 17 others in the stabbing and beating death of 19-year-old Byron Benito in Canyon Country. On January 15, 2002, Sam, who had known Byron since childhood, picked him up and took him to a location behind a mobile home park where a group of suspected gang members attacked and killed Byron. Although Sam was charged with murder, he was eventually acquitted, but this did not ease the police's suspicions of him. Sam's family believes in his innocence, but the police believe they are after the right suspect. Since Sam is trained in the use of firearms, he will be armed. Fearing that they are dealing with a dangerous criminal, the police issue a warrant for Sam's arrest. Meanwhile, Costa Mesa police begin monitoring Sam's cell phone and credit card transactions to find him. They learn that he has made 4 ATM withdrawals since his disappearance. Additionally, his credit card was used at a pizza delivery restaurant in Long Beach, California, just 20 miles from Sam's home. The police hoped to find Sam on surveillance footage, but when the bank provided the ATM recording, they were shocked to see a teenager in a hoodie and baseball cap withdrawing money from Sam's bank account. Neither the police nor Sam's parents were able to identify the teenager. Police believe he may be helping Sam escape or hide. Costa Mesa police are eager to find him. On May 26, 2010, police learned that Sam's credit card had been used at another pizza delivery service and began tracking the delivery driver. After obtaining the delivery address, they rushed to the location, thinking they had finally found Sam's hideout. However, when police raided the home, they did not find Sam, but instead found 17-year-old Wesley Freelich and several of his friends. Despite being suspected, police immediately ruled Wesley out as a suspect, but he still had Sam's credit card on him. Wesley shared a surprising story that police did not expect. He revealed that he had received a credit card with instructions to withdraw cash, but that the card was not given to him by Sam, and he said Daniel Wozniak, a local stage actor Wesley met through community theater, had given him a credit card. Daniel claimed to be a bail bondsman who needed to collect money that Sam owed. While most people might have refused, Wesley saw Daniel as a brother and, not realizing the severity of the situation, agreed to help. In total, $1,900 was withdrawn from the account. Daniel Wozniak's name came to the attention of the police when they discovered an invitation to Daniel's upcoming wedding in Sam's apartment. But who is Daniel really, and what is his relationship to Sam? Did he help Sam escape, or was he involved in the murder? Many questions remain unanswered. Daniel Wozniak, born March 23, 1984, is the youngest of 3 brothers. Because his parents worked long hours, he spent a lot of time with his grandparents after school. Growing up in a wealthy family, Daniel and his family often went on lavish vacations. He was considered a good student at school, getting top grades most of the time. He used pranks, singing, dancing, and magic tricks to attract people's attention. He loved being the center of attention. Realizing that he had a talent for performing on stage, Daniel began acting and singing in musicals in his early 20s. He was quite open-minded about his plans for the future, but was never able to hold down a job for long, forcing him to move from job to job with very low pay. However, he kept his passion for acting and continued to participate in theater. It was in one of these musicals that he met his dream partner, an actress. After a short period of dating, they decided to marry on May 26, 2010. The police found Daniel while he was celebrating his bachelor party in Huntington Beach, California. He was related to Sam Hart because they lived in the same apartment complex. The police suspected that Daniel may have helped Sam escape or hide, or that he was involved in Julie's murder. With an arrest warrant in hand, the police interrupted Daniel's bachelor party. His expression changed when he saw the police, and they took him into custody for questioning. In the interrogation room, Wozniak initially claimed that his only crime was participating in credit card fraud and covering up for Sam. He explained to the police that he and Sam had planned to drain his bank account with Wesley's help and then claimed that he had stolen the credit cards. However, Daniel claimed that before they could carry out their plan, Sam made a shocking confession. He added that after this confession, he dropped Sam off at a local shopping mall and had not seen him since. However, the police believed that he was still covering for Sam and that he had more to do with Julie's murder than he had told them. The police changed their approach by taking a DNA sample from Daniel, which made him appear nervous. As he tried to remain calm, the police sensed that something was wrong. Almost immediately, he began adding more details to his statement. The police asked, "Can you explain what happened to Sam?" Daniel replied, "I told him I needed to move some objects in the theater. I said, 'Lift this up,' and as he bent down, I grabbed the gun. I had never fired a gun before, so I pulled the trigger and shot him." The police realized that Daniel is worried that his DNA might be found at Sam's apartment, despite his attempts to downplay the issue. Under pressure, he continually changes his story. After a brief silence, Daniel says that he knows about Julie's murder and that he helped Sam escape. When the police remind him that they have his DNA, he insists that it does not match anything on Julie's body, insisting that he had nothing to do with the murder. The police expect him to share more information, but he abruptly decides to end the interview. Knowing the seriousness of the situation, the police press him for more information, warning that he will be arrested for accessory to murder if he does not come clean and give them full details. Daniel also has a lot at stake. He has a wedding scheduled in just 48 hours and he does not want to miss it. Under pressure, he began to collapse, causing the situation to change. The police, noticing his distress, rushed into questioning by falsely claiming that they had found his DNA on Julie's body. In reality, it took weeks for the DNA test results to come back, but Daniel did not dispute this claim. Instead, he explained that his DNA was present because he had been right above her. When his fabrications were exposed, he made a startling confession. This alarmed the police because initially only one gunshot wound was found at the crime scene. It was only after an autopsy that a second gunshot wound was discovered. Daniel's confession meant that he had been present when she was killed, making him an accomplice to the murder, allowing the police to formally arrest him. Even though Daniel was in custody, the police still needed to locate Sam, and Daniel remained silent as they searched for clues about Sam. While in prison, Daniel called his fiancée, Rachel Buffett. When Rachel chose freedom over love, she told him that she would speak to the police about the case. Daniel knew that he had to talk to the police before Rachel did. Suddenly, he panicked, desperate to reach a deal with the police that he had refused to do just hours before. But what he told the police this time was beyond their imagination. The story begins on May 21, 2010, when Daniel asks Sam to help him with a task, moving some boxes in the attic of a theater at a local military base. While Sam is busy moving the boxes and his back is turned, Daniel suddenly pulls out a gun and shoots Sam in the head. At first, Sam doesn't know what happened, but when he realizes he's been shot, he begs Daniel for help. Without hesitation, Daniel loads the gun and shoots Sam a second time, killing him on the spot. After killing Sam, Daniel proceeds to send Julie messages from Sam's phone, inviting her to Sam's apartment. Without any remorse, he leaves Sam's body in the attic and spends the night laughing, singing, and dancing, as if he hadn't just taken an innocent life. That night, Daniel returns to the apartment, and when Julie arrives, he shoots her twice in the head. He then staged the crime scene to make it appear as if Sam had attacked and killed Julie before fleeing. Daniel was also determined to hide Sam's body. In a desperate and gruesome act, he returned to the loft and cut off Sam's hands and head to conceal his identity. He dumped the body in a nearby park. Despite these horrific actions, Daniel returned to the theater as if nothing had happened. Police later found photos from the film's parties showing him laughing and joking with other members of the crew. The motive for these shocking murders was even more disturbing. It was all about money. Daniel had been struggling financially for a long time and was facing eviction, having been 2 months behind on his rent. He also had no way to pay for the lavish wedding and honeymoon he had planned. When Daniel discovers that Sam has $62,000 in savings from his time in the military, he makes the cold-blooded decision to kill 2 innocent people to fund his lavish wedding and vacation. When the police discover the backpack containing the evidence Rachel mentioned to Daniel, it becomes clear just how damaging its contents can be. Daniel's brother, Tim, was told to get rid of the backpack but instead threw it over the fence at their parents' house. The backpack contained a number of incriminating items, including Sam's financial information, passport, bloody clothing, and most importantly, the murder weapon. Daniel's DNA was found on these items, placing him solely responsible for the murders of Julie and Sam. The evidence was overwhelming, including DNA, spent shell casings, and the victim's financial records, everything the prosecutor could possibly need, including the murder weapon itself. On December 16, 2015, after a trial that lasted just 5 days, Daniel Wozniak was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. On January 11, 2016, after just 1 hour of deliberation, one of the shortest death penalty trials ever, the jury recommended the death penalty for Daniel Wozniak. On September 23, 2016, the judge sentenced him to death. It seemed there was no end to the deception in this case. Years later, police discovered that Daniel's ex-fiancée, Rachel Buffett, not only knew about the murder plots, but also lied to the police. Although she denied all charges, she was arrested and charged with 3 felony counts of being an accessory after the fact, based on allegations that she had repeatedly lied to the police. On September 12, 2018, she was convicted of 2 of those charges, carrying a maximum possible sentence of 44 months. On November 8, 2018, she was sentenced to 32 months in prison and was released from prison in about 2019. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore, the case of Tara Baker. Tara Baker was born on January 20, 1977, in East Point, Georgia. Her parents divorced when she was young, and her mother later remarried. She is the eldest of 4 siblings. From an early age, she showed a strong interest in the legal system, with the desire to pursue a career as a lawyer or judge. She would often engage in mock trials with her stuffed animals, create contracts with her relatives, and even write letters to politicians, including the President of the United States, to express her opinions. After high school, Tara attended Georgia College, where she earned 2 bachelor's degrees in just 3 years, graduating in 1999. She then enrolled at the University of Georgia, one of the top law schools in the country, located in Athens, a small town close to her parents' home. To avoid dorm life, Tara rented a house with 2 other university students, one of whom she knew from college. Tara worked at a prestigious law firm in downtown Athens, covering her expenses and gaining valuable experience in her future profession. In January 2001, Tara spent a lot of time studying at the university library. On the evening of January 18th, she went to the library to study with a friend. Her friend left the library around 7:30 p.m. Tara stayed behind, calling her friend at 9:46 p.m. to check if she had arrived home safely, mentioning that she would head home soon. The next day, around 6 p.m., Tara's mother, Virginia Baker, received a phone call from a woman who identified herself as a detective. The detective tells Virginia that they need her daughter Tara's fingerprints for their current investigation. Believing it was a prank, Virginia hung up, but her curiosity got the better of her. She decided to call the Athens police station to verify the call. Police said the caller was actually a forensic detective, and they further informed her that there had been a fire at Tara's home. The detective explained that they were trying to locate Tara, but so far, they had only found one of Tara's roommates, who had been out at the time of the fire. The other roommate was also missing, and investigators suspected that the unidentified body they found might be one of them. Virginia was desperate for information and asked the detective to describe the room where the body was found. The detective's response sent a chill down Tara's spine. The room was filled with Tara antique items, which she had spent years collecting. Virginia and her family immediately drove to Athens to see what was happening to their daughter, hoping that it was just a misunderstanding and that Tara was safe. Upon arriving at the police station, they were forced to wait for several hours without receiving any updates. Eventually, a detective emerged and delivered the devastating news. The body found in the house was indeed Tara's, and her death was a result of murder, not the fire. However, the detective was exhausted and declined to answer any questions. Before departing, he shared one crucial detail. Tara had inadvertently left behind a clue. Fragments of the perpetrator's skin were found under her fingernails, which could potentially aid in identifying the killer. Tara's family was shocked, confused, and hopeless by the news. Despite their requests for more information about Tara, the police remained silent, not providing any further details. The family of Tara Baker was left in the dark about her murder investigation. Despite their repeated attempts to get information from detectives, they were met with silence. The local police department never reached out to them, forcing the family to constantly call and visit the station to beg for updates. Through persistence, they were able to gather some details about the case. Firefighters were called to Tara's address on January 19th at approximately 11 a.m. in response to a fire. After extinguishing the flames, they found Tara's body inside. The medical examiner's report confirmed that she had been murdered, with signs of strangulation and stab wounds. It appeared that the killer had set the fire to destroy evidence after Tara's death. However, the police refused to share the medical examiner's report with Tara's parents, leaving them without crucial information about her murder. The family also discovered that some evidence may have been destroyed by the firefighters. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon in cases like this. Investigators may not have properly secured the crime scene, which could have resulted in the loss of evidence. As Tara's family sought answers about her death, they were met with a lack of transparency and disrespect from the police. They were not kept informed about the investigation, were often treated rudely and unprofessionally. In an attempt to hold the police accountable, they began to record their conversations and filed complaints, but these efforts yielded no results. The family sought the advice of a renowned criminologist. However, the local police department would only allow him to review the case materials under one condition: he was not to share any information or findings with Tara's relatives. This left Tara's family unable to find answers about her death. Tara's family waited 10 years to get her death certificate. After writing to the state governor, they finally received it, but it didn't give them the answers they were looking for. Instead of explaining what caused her death, the certificate simply stated that she died from multiple injuries, without providing any further details. Despite the police continued their investigation, but their actions raised several questions. When Tara's body was discovered, firefighters immediately called the police, recognizing that a murder had taken place. But the crime scene was seriously destroyed due to extensive damage from the fire and water used to extinguish it. Furthermore, the family later discovered that some surviving items at the crime scene were not examined for fingerprints. Tara's laptop was found missing from her room, but other valuables were intact. Since there was no evidence of forced entry, investigators suspected that Tara was familiar with her killer and had voluntarily allowed them into her room. Although the crime scene was heavily damaged due to the fire, investigators established that Tara's 2 roommates were away from town at the time, leaving Tara home alone. Because it was difficult to determine the exact time of death, medical experts narrowed the window down to a time frame of 10 p.m., when Tara left the library, to 11 a.m., when neighbors called the fire department. The likelihood of the crime occurring during the early morning hours, given the speed at which the fire spread. The police investigation uncovered 2 significant leads. One involved a witness who reported seeing a middle-aged white man running down the street on the morning of the murder, wearing only a t-shirt and jeans despite the winter weather. Additionally, the police discovered a suspicious phone call made to Tara's university a few days before her death. A heavily intoxicated man had called the university's student information line. The man managed to correctly provide Tara Baker's name and request her phone number. Although the phone call was highly suspicious, the police were unable to identify the caller. Meanwhile, Tara's boyfriend became an immediate person of interest in the investigation. He provided an alibi, which was verified by the police, but they continued to view him with suspicion. Police have repeatedly questioned him and asked him to provide additional biological samples, answer additional questions, or undergo a lie detector test. Tara's boyfriend was asked to identify her body after the fire. He had traveled from another city to Athens as soon as he heard the news. Although Tara's parents were already in town, the police requested that the boyfriend make the identification. However, he was not allowed to enter the house. Instead, a police officer took a photograph of the body and showed it to him on a camera screen. The boyfriend was shocked and unsure if the body was Tara's. To confirm, he asked to see a pair of earrings he had given her. The officer retrieved the earrings from the body Tara's and showed them to him. After seeing the earrings, the boyfriend confirmed that the body was indeed Tara's. The police then shifted their focus to a male student who had a reputation for being troublesome. Several female students reported that he had repeatedly asked them out on dates, despite being told no, and made them feel uncomfortable with his behavior. The student had also asked Tara out multiple times, despite knowing she had a boyfriend. Detectives investigated the student but found no evidence linking him to the crime. They even asked Tara's friends to monitor the boy's activities, but this did not bring any new progress. Detectives began to focus on another suspect, a guy who was Tara's co-worker. When they interviewed his co-workers, they discovered that his behavior in the days leading up to the murders was very strange. Specifically, he had stopped socializing with a group of close co-workers. Additionally, just days before the murders, he had told Tara that he would not be able to attend her birthday party, which was scheduled for the day after the murders. On the morning of January 19th, one of Tara's co-workers tried to convince him to attend birthday celebration, as Tara had been hurt by his initial refusal. When the colleague visited the attorney's office, however, he was nowhere to be found. This was unusual, as the attorney was typically present at the office in the mornings. A check of his work schedule revealed no meetings or appointments, adding to the mystery of his absence. His behavior raised suspicions after Tara's murder. He was absent on the day of the murder, but the next day, he visited a colleague's home and acted strangely. Many suspect that he regularly used illegal drugs, which may have contributed to his erratic behavior. The co-worker noticed several fresh scratches on his neck, which were notable because several pieces of skin were found under Tara's fingernails, suggesting that she may have scratched her attacker in self-defense. When questioned about the scratches, he claimed he got them from a cat and denied any involvement in Tara's murder. However, when asked about his suspicions regarding the killer, his response was unusual. He screams that Tara's father is the culprit, but he cannot produce any evidence to back up his accusation. Furthermore, he resigned from his position just a few months after the murder and left the state. It is unclear whether the police compared his DNA with the samples found under Tara's nails. But they have not shared any information about this aspect of the investigation, even with Tara's relatives. The police discovered that he was married, but still secretly dated 2 female colleagues. This revelation could explain his unusual behavior and unexplained absences from work. Both women also suspected that he was using illicit substances. However, police found no evidence to prove his involvement in the murder and eventually cleared him as a suspect. The detectives also investigated the maintenance company employees who had access to the house where Tara lived. They had a spare key, which might explain why there was no sign of forced entry. Unfortunately, this lead also yielded no results. Since then, the case has had no new clues. The police continue to search for new suspects and witnesses, but they are keeping many details about their investigation under wraps to avoid it being undermined. The investigation into Tara's murder continued over the years, with several new leads emerging, but it did not yield any results for the investigation. One witness reported seeing an African American man near Tara's house on the day of the fire, while another claimed to have seen blood on a classmate's notebook shortly after the murder. Despite police efforts to pursue these leads, they ultimately led to dead ends. Tara's parents offered a $77,000 reward in hopes of generating new leads. The detective team working on the case changed several times, but they all encountered considerable difficulties due to lack of evidence. The fire in Tara's room burned most of the evidence, leaving the police with few clues to investigate. 19 years after Tara's murder, a podcast about her case was released, generating renewed interest and attention. The podcast gathered information from Tara's family and individuals connected to the case, re-examining the evidence and helped reinvestigate the case. The police department took notice of the podcast, leading to better cooperation between detectives and Tara's family. For several months, detectives reviewed all available information and evidence, using modern DNA analysis tools to re-examine the evidence. Their efforts paid off on May 13, 2024, when police announced that they had finally arrested the perpetrator, 23 years after the murder. The suspect, Edric Lamont Faust, 48, was arrested, but police did not reveal how they identified the suspect, citing the need to keep some information secret to protect ongoing legal proceedings. Investigators only mentioned that modern DNA analysis tools and other biological evidence played a crucial role in Edric's identification. Further details of the case were not disclosed at the press conference, and police chose to withhold evidence to avoid compromising Edric's trial. However, his arrest documents revealed that he was accused of assaulting Tara. Additionally, a piece of skin was found under Tara's fingernails, which was used to extract the killer's DNA using modern DNA analysis tools. The police had likely known about Edric for years due to his long history of crime, which included multiple arrests. At the time of Tara's murder, he was 25 and lived in the same city as she. Despite this, the police initially found no evidence suggesting that Edric knew Tara. It wasn't until recently, thanks to advanced DNA analysis, that Edric became a suspect in the case. Detectives only started investigating him a few days before his arrest. Edric is currently in jail awaiting trial. The police are confident that they have found the right person, as they obtained irrefutable DNA evidence. As a result, Edric was denied bail, and Tara's case is now considered closed. Tara's family finally finds out the truth after 23 years. Thanks to a new team of detectives who reopen the case and solve it. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Teresa Keel. Teresa Keel, a teacher from New York, was born and lived for a time in the Queens area. She later moved to Long Beach, Florida, where she married a well-known dentist. Unfortunately, her husband passed away in 2004. Teresa had 2 children from this marriage, Francesca and Vincent. After becoming a widow, she devoted her entire life to taking care of her children. Besides, she created a unique tutoring program for local homeless children who did not have access to education. Initially, Teresa worked as a teacher, and eventually she became the principal of a high school in the district. Her son, Vincent, was a talented athlete and tennis player, while her daughter Francesca excelled in school. Then, Vincent became an app developer, with his mother's support. Francesca worked as a waitress while attending classes at the community college nearby. Teresa and her 2 children lived together in Long Beach. On December 4, 2016, local resident Franklin Kuzma was returning home from training at 10:30 p.m. when he noticed a figure chasing a woman down the street. Although his view was limited, but he saw that the person had chased the woman into the building and hit her, after which she fell down. Franklin immediately ran to help and found the woman with a serious head injury. He scared the attacker away and shouted to neighbors to call the rescue service, then chased after the attacker. He followed the attacker into a dark alley, but lost sight of him and could not continue the pursuit. Franklin returned to the crime scene, where the police had already arrived. The victim was 56 years old Teresa Keel, who was alive but in serious condition. As she was being loaded into the ambulance, her son Vincent arrived, and a neighbor informed him about the incident. Vincent was in shock, having dined with his mother just a couple of hours earlier. The police began examining the crime scene, which was at the entrance of an apartment building. A hole in the wall indicated that the criminal's first blow missed its target. Teresa had resisted the attack. The possibility of robbery was ruled out because her wallet and phone were found next to her. Given the brutality of the attack, the police believed the motive was personal. Franklin, a neighbor who witnessed the attack and chased the suspect, provided a detailed account of the incident. He described the attacker as tall, strong, and athletic. The attacker's face was partially concealed by a hat and a bandage. Despite using search dogs, no trace of the suspect was found, suggesting he fled by car. Near Teresa's house, a blood-stained dumbbell was discovered and became the main weapon in the case. It was sent to a lab for analysis. Records supported the sequence of events, and Franklin's neighbor obtained an image of the suspect, but it was of poor quality, obscuring the face. Franklin was seen pursuing someone carrying a sports bag. It is possible that inside were clothes that the suspect had changed into before disappearing. However, Teresa's daughter, Francesca, could not be reached. Her brother Michael and Vincent reported that Francesca left home about 10 months ago, after starting a relationship with Ralph Kepler. The relationship caused family tension since Francesca was 18 and Ralph, at 26, had a dubious reputation. He was a former athlete and worked as a correctional officer. Francisco often argued with her mother, who urged her to end the relationship and return home. The family believed Francesca might be involved in the attack on her mother, suspecting Ralph's involvement. Right after the attack, Teresa fell into a coma. Doctors reported severe injuries from a blunt object. She almost lost her right eye, several teeth were knocked out, her skull was crushed, and she had a serious brain injury. She was connected to life support. Doctors suspected a dumbbell caused the injuries. The police hoped Teresa would wake from the coma to give a statement. Meanwhile, detectives conducted a more thorough investigation into Francesca and Ralph. The investigation revealed conflicts between Ralph and the Keel family, which could be a motive. The police visited Linwood, where he and Francesca lived. They were separated and questioned separately. She was shocked to hear of the attack on her mother. Detectives were skeptical, but she insisted they had an alibi. She and Ralph were at home all night wrapping gifts and watching football, they providing a selfie posted online 11 minutes after the attack as proof. Ralph, in another room, supported her story, saying he only left the house once that day, around 11 a.m., to buy a lottery ticket and then returned home. Detectives remain wary about Ralph and Francesca's statements, even though their statements have many similarities. They were questioned extensively about the tension between them and Teresa. They do not deny it, but they explaining that Teresa was suspected of embezzling money from investors who funded their joint project to develop a new social network. According to they, all the investors could be upset with Teresa. Moreover, a lawsuit had recently been filed against her. During the investigation, the detectives looked into the investors and discovered that one of them was Ralph, who had invested $130,000 in the project. Ralph considered himself an ambitious entrepreneur and wanted to invest his savings wisely. He knew Vincent was an app developer and wanted Vincent to create a new dating app, similar to a social network, that would become popular and profitable. However, this job takes a lot of time and he doesn't like it. Ralph accused Teresa and Vincent of defrauding investors out of $350,000 intended for app development. In a lawsuit filed in May 2016, Ralph claimed that his money was misused for cosmetic surgeries, luxury cars, beauty salon visits, and clothing. Both Teresa and Vincent denied these allegations. Vincent continues to develop this application, he stating from the beginning that app development would take a significant amount of time and effort. Other investors had solid alibis and did not blame Teresa, as she had refunded their money. This left Ralph and Francesca as the main suspects. To validate their suspicions, detectives needed concrete evidence. Ralph and Francesca's alibi was weak, and no one could corroborate it. Detectives noticed discrepancies and decided to conduct a thorough investigation into the couple's communication. They collected recordings of messenger conversations from Vincent, Francesca, Ralph, and Teresa, who was still in a coma. The investigators uncovered troubling evidence. In nearly every conversation, Teresa warned that Ralph posed a threat to the family. Ralph, in turn, claimed that Teresa had severely harmed his well-being and made threats suggesting she deserved to die. He also mentioned the possibility of an accident, and after the attack, he and Francesca expressed satisfaction that Teresa had sustained serious injuries, particularly the loss of an eye. However, this was not enough to bring them to court. People who knew Teresa mentioned that she was frightened of Ralph and often voiced this to friends. She feels he is a threat to Vincent and Francesca. Teresa's family has filed a lawsuit in court, accusing Ralph of financially, emotionally, and sexually controlling Francesca. They alleged that he monitored Francesca's phone calls and emails, pressured her into getting breast implants, and even forced her to claim that Teresa's was a prostitute. Francesca denied these allegations, asserting that everything was consensual, which led the judge to dismiss the case. During the trial in December 2017, Ralph alleged that Teresa and Vincent had received a substantial amount of money from him to develop a dating app but used it for personal expenses instead. However, these allegations were unsubstantiated because Vincent demonstrated that he was still actively working on the project. The investigators investigated Ralph and Francesca's phone records and discovered a phone number linked to Spytech. a company that sold tracking devices. It turned out that Francesca had purchased a GPS tracking device from them. 2 weeks before the attack, Francesca's emails contained alerts from the device she used to track Teresa's location. Both she and Ralph had the ability to change the device's batteries and knew when it needed to be done. On the day of the murder, December 4th, Francesca ordered a taxi, which allowed investigators to trace the vehicle that Ralph used. Detectives spoke with the taxi driver. The driver recalled that he had given a ride to a man who matched Ralph's description. The driver described him as a tall and strong individual. He was acting very strangely. He seemed nervous, climbed into the back seat, and bent down as if trying to hide from someone, and got out at the station. Although the price of the trip is $5, but he paid nearly $20 and quickly left. CCTV footage from the station was reviewed, and the man's appearance matched Ralph's description in several ways, particularly regarding his body type and clothing. This evidence was sufficient to warrant Ralph's arrest. On January 24, 2018, Ralph was charged with attempted murder using a dumbbell. DNA evidence from 2 individuals was found at the scene. The police tried to collect a DNA sample from Ralph for comparison, but he insisted on having a lawyer and refused to provide a sample. He was taken into custody, and bail was set at $50,000. During this time, they obtained a DNA sample that was taken from him without his knowledge. After paying the bail, Ralph was released from prison but was placed under house arrest while awaiting trial. Investigators continue to look into Francesca's involvement in the crime, suspecting that she might be an accomplice. Friends of Francesca reported that Ralph had manipulated her into. He tells her that her family is trying to usurp the inheritance left by her father. This led she to distrust her family. The DNA analysis results from the dumbbell found in November 2018 are in. It contained Teresa's blood, as well as DNA that matched Ralph's DNA. The police obtained over 20 warrants to search electronic devices and communication records for more information. It became increasingly clear that Francesca was involved in planning the crime, especially after examining her personal computer and phone. In the months leading up to the attack, she had researched online about the effectiveness of DNA testing on vulnerable areas of the head. This strongly suggested that she was looking for the most effective way to kill her own mother, Teresa. On November 10, 2018, Teresa's family made the difficult decision to disconnect her from life support after she had been in a coma for 2 years without any improvement in her condition. Doctors had indicated that there was no chance of her returning to a normal life. This decision resulted in more serious charges for Ralph and Francesca, who were arrested again, now facing murder charges. They maintained their innocence, but the evidence against them was overwhelming. Eventually, they detailed their involvement in the crime. On December 4th, Francesca found Teresa at a diner, where she was having dinner with Vincent. Meanwhile, Ralph was waiting for she to come home. After the attack, Francesca called a taxi for Ralph, who fled the scene. To create a false alibi, Francesca used of their mobile phones from home in Linwood to post a selfie on social media, which she had taken earlier and stored in a cloud for this purpose. There was overwhelming evidence proving Francesca and Ralph's guilt, so the trial was reopened in late 2019. The prosecution offered a plea deal to the couple to lessen their sentences, which they both accepted. Ralph Kepler pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and aggravated murder, receiving a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 22 years. Francesca Keel pleaded guilty to unintentional murder and was sentenced to 13 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 9 years. Welcome back, mystery lovers. Today's case is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. The case of Lissi family. This story takes place in Modo Visconti, a small town between Milan and Pavia, Italy, with a population of just 6,000. It is a classic, picturesque village where many seek a peaceful life away from the chaos of larger cities, making it a popular place to safely raise children. Typically, crime rates are low in such areas. However, even this peaceful Italian village can harbor horrors. On June 14, 2014, a horrific event unfolded here. Around 2 a.m., a local man ran into the street, screaming for help. He managed to reach a neighbor who had been awakened by the noise. In shock, he explained that his family had been attacked. He told the neighbor that their home had been robbed and everyone inside had been killed, while he had miraculously managed to escape. Appearing to be in a state of shock, he was unable to call emergency services himself, so the neighbors took it upon themselves to make the call and handed him the phone. When neighbors understood what had happened, they realized that the attackers had killed Lissy's wife, his 5-year-old daughter and 1.5-year-old son. Lissy, 31 at the time of the tragedy, had been watching a football match between Italy and England with friends. When Lissy left his home, everything seemed peaceful. However, when he returned after the match, he was horrified to find his house covered in blood. First, he discovered the body of his wife Catherine, then went upstairs and found the bodies of his children in the room. Despite his best efforts to save them, he was unable to save them. The dispatcher instructed the Lissy to check on the victims and assist them, but Lissy outright refused to touch the bodies. The rescue service operator didn't find anything unusual in Lissy's behavior. He was panicking, shocked, crying, screaming, and speaking nonsensically, but his reactions were generally typical for someone in such a situation. Emergency services were dispatched to the scene before the police arrived. Meanwhile, Lissy called his father to talk about the incident. When the police arrived, he and his father were already meeting on the porch of the house. Doctors confirmed the deaths of 38-year-old Catherine and her 2 children. Police arrived at the scene around 4 a.m., where forensic experts were already examining the house for evidence. Initially, it was thought that a gang of robbers had broken in, especially since they had attacked another family a year earlier with knives and had not been caught. However, police quickly ruled out the robbery theory because there were no signs of forced entry or theft. Even a wallet containing money, which was left in plain sight, had not been disturbed. It seemed unlikely that the intruders could have entered and exited the house without leaving a trace unless they were familiar with the victims. The house was unusually clean, with hardly any blood stains that should have been there after an attack. It raised concerns that the criminal had cleaned the entire house, with suspicion naturally falling on Lissy. Statistics show that the people closest to a victim are often the ones who commit the crime. Lissy had fresh, deep cuts on his hands that he couldn't explain. He also discovered the lifeless bodies of his family members, which were already cold, suggesting they had been murdered hours before he went to see his friends. The police observed that he was acting oddly. Lissy struggled to show emotions. He couldn't cry, no matter how hard he tried. He seemed very anxious, glancing around nervously. Since he couldn't produce tears, he stood there in silence, doing nothing, even though his entire family had been brutally killed. It appeared as if he didn't care at all. This behavior aroused suspicion, and as police began questioning him, Lissy's fears became clear. He began pacing the room, scratching his hands and banging on furniture. While this could have been a sign of stress and distress, police suspected something much darker. Doctors recommended treatment for Lissy's arm wound. Later, he was asked to strip down for examination. When he removed his shirt, police discovered drops of blood on his lower back, but his clothes were clean. The police spoke to the neighbors, who reported strange noises and a woman's screams at around 11 p.m., just before Lissy left the house. However, the noises quickly disappeared and the neighbors did not think to call the police. Had they acted sooner, it could have saved the children's lives, as they did not die immediately but bled out over a long period of time. The police observed that the mess in Lissy's house was unusual for a typical robbery. Usually, thieves leave items scattered and broken, but in Lissy's case, many things were untouched and arranged neatly, as if someone had staged. This raised suspicions about Lissy's involvement in the triple murder. Experienced police pieced together the evidence like a puzzle and brought Lissy in for questioning. During the interrogation, Lissy acted unusually, instead of responding to questions. He requested pizza, sweets, and soda. He denied any connection to the crime and stuck to his version of events. After his arrest, Lissy was locked in a cell, where he promptly fell asleep. The next day, he remained calm and even carefree, which was evident in his demeanor. The police decided to investigate Lissy's colleagues, who revealed that he had recently developed strong feelings for an attractive girl named Maria. Lissy became increasingly focused on Maria and made the firm decision to end her relationship with Catherine. During his interrogation, Lissy tried to create an illusion of love and devotion for Catherine. The police were concerned about his mental health. They decided to manipulate his emotions. The police informed Lissy that his new colleagues despised him even more after the deaths of his wife and child, and this tactic worked. It threw Lissy off balance. He lost his temper and exploded in anger. 20 minutes later, he began confessing, after which Lissy was formally charged with murder. The police began gathering information about his family in preparation for the trial. Lissy was born in Kazara as the first child in the family and later had a younger brother. Their father was a strict and demanding man, clearly favoring his youngest son over Lissy, who was often scolded. Lissy felt deeply hurt by this treatment and never found the courage to confront her father. He followed his orders without question, and if he was in a bad mood, Lissy would immediately retreat, knowing that it could lead to more trouble. During his teenage years, Lissy grew fed up with what he had been through as a young man. By the age of 20, he began to show his true character and no longer wanted to hide his feelings or follow his father's orders. At school, he faced bullying and was influenced by his family's expectations, but he persisted in trying to make people happy. This desire to please became a painful struggle, as Lissy often put the needs of others before his own. Lissy faces psychological issues but avoids addressing them, instead choosing to let events unfold naturally. Occasionally, Lissy will engage in arguments, but he is easily overpowered by others. To prevent worsening the situation, he believed he was making the right choice by avoiding any conflict. He felt certain that he would lose in any confrontation, so he chose to remain silent and endure everything. He had been conditioned to value others' opinions over his own. He would laugh when others laughed and felt sad when they were sad. Lissy always tried to present himself well to avoid criticism about his appearance. He started going to the gym to fit in more socially. He was terrified of social rejection, but he hid his insecurities by portraying himself as altruistic and or help others. Lissy's father forced him to study economics at university, leaving him with no other choice. He pursued this path and graduated at 21, securing a consulting job at a large firm in Milan. However, he did not enjoy the job. Despite his dissatisfaction, he stayed in the job due to the high salary and good working conditions. He spent all his free time focused on his career, and while it seemed he was successful, he still did not find fulfillment in it. Feeling the pressure from those around him, including friends who constantly asked when he would find a girlfriend and get married, Lissy began searching for a wife. After 2 years of unsuccessful dating, he finally met his future wife, Catherine. Lissy, 23, and Catherine, 30, their age difference doesn't seem to pose any problems. She's more mature and experienced, often guiding him through their relationship. Catherine sees their relationship as the perfect foundation for starting a family. Catherine is a determined and possessing a strong personality that makes her difficult to manipulate. She's been independent since she was a child. By the age of 20, Catherine supported herself. Although she seemed uncertain about her direction, she was still full of energy. She aspired to pursue acting and further her education. Catherine devotes all her free time to her passion. In contrast to Lissy, the difference between her and Lissy is clear. Catherine shares a relationship with her father based on mutual understanding and respect, while Lissy shares very little with her father. While Catherine was socially active, Lissy was rather introverted. She became an insurance agent at a company in Modo Visconti. She had a successful career and was highly regarded at work. Catherine chose to stay in this small town because it made her feel comfortable. Her family and friends lived nearby, and she found everything she needed in life without any problems. Catherine loved musicals and performed at the Modo Visconti Oratory. During this time, she also developed a love for public speaking, and it was here that she met her future husband, Lissy. Catherine was attracted to him immediately, but their initial meeting did not work out because he was too shy. They met again in 2014. At the time, Catherine was performing on stage, and Lissy seemed to come alive when he looked at her. His friends noticed a change in him. His usually indifferent expression lit up with excitement. It was love. Before this meeting, Lissy had never been in a serious relationship, but he seemed ready to start a family. They started dating and their relationship quickly developed. A few months later, when things became more serious, they introduced each other to Catherine's parents. Catherine's family had mixed feelings about her choice of partner. They had hoped for someone more experienced and outgoing. However, her parents ultimately supported her decision. Catherine felt that Lissy was the perfect person to start a family with. Lissy's family was very supportive of his choice. They liked Catherine because she was smart, cheerful, energetic, determined, and capable of taking care of him. His father especially appreciated these qualities, which made Lissy happy. The father was very happy that his son finally found a girlfriend. His father gifted the couple a house. It was a small but cozy place in the countryside, perfect for starting their family life together. Soon after, the couple got married and later, they welcomed children. However, this story does not have a happy ending. After their marriage, Lissy's true nature began to emerge in an unusual way. He began to cheat on his wife. His good looks made it easy for him to meet new women without feeling guilty. At the time, Catherine was completely unaware of his affair, as he worked in Milan, far from their family home. Lissy had affairs with many different women and became adept at being charming and fun, making many of them want to pursue a serious relationship with him. And as soon as the idea of a serious relationship was mentioned, he would end things with his mistress and quickly start seeing someone new. He never revealed to any of them that he was married and had children. He pursued attractive women, often initiating relationships with female colleagues at work. He showed little regard for privacy during his extramarital activities in Milan. His reckless lifestyle was well known to many of his friends and acquaintances. After 7 years of marriage, Catherine welcomed her second child. However, in 2009, she discovered that Lissy had been unfaithful and had been acting recklessly in the lawn. Despite this betrayal, Catherine was determined to keep her family together and did her best to strengthen her relationship with her husband. Although there were signs that Lissy had considered divorce several times, she repeatedly urged him to stay for the sake of the children. In fact, Lissy cheated on her the first time before the wedding. Just a week before their wedding, while Catherine was volunteering at the Red Cross, Lissy went out with friends to a strip club, celebrating a bachelor party. During this outing, a woman showed interest in him, and his friends encouraged him to spend the night with as a last fun before marriage. He finally agreed. The next day, he confessed to Catherine that he enjoyed being single and admitted that he was not ready for marriage or a serious relationship. Heartbroken, Catherine packed her things and moved in with her parents. However, the next day, Lissy returned, apologized to her and her family, and begged her to come back. Catherine forgave him and they eventually married. Friends say he loved spending time with his children and playing with them, but he never showed affection. Those who knew him never saw him kiss or hug his son and daughter. His life was filled with lies that were obvious to both him and those around him. When a new employee joined the company where Lissy worked, he and the girl started a relationship. But the girl did not want to be the reason for the breakup, especially because it would leave the two young children without a father. Meanwhile, Lissy was haunted by his unrequited love. This frustration led him to come up with a dark plan. Despite the objections of his colleagues, Lissy decided to end his marriage to Catherine. However, he was too afraid to approach his wife and discuss it, fearing that another conflict would arise and complicate things even more. He knew that he would not be able to resist her pleas to stay together for the sake of the children. Therefore, Lissy believed that using a knife would be the solution to her problems. Police discovered relevant search queries in his browser. Initially, Lissy was looking for a divorce lawyer and also looking for a way to end her relationship quickly without professional help. Lissy then began searching for knife murder methods. This led him to a news story about a knife robbery that had occurred in their neighborhood a year earlier, which sparked the idea of staging a robbery to throw the investigation off course. On June 14, 2014, Lissy woke up with the intention of killing his entire family. It had been only a week since Lissy had started searching online for ways to kill his loved ones, and he had finally decided to carry out the horrific act. Throughout the day, he maintained the facade of a devoted family man. It was a typical Saturday for a couple with children. They went shopping together, went to a store to project an image of a happy relationship, and enjoyed family activities. It seemed like he had planned the perfect farewell weekend for them. In the evening, Catherine prepared a delicious dinner and they enjoyed it together. Afterwards, Lissy planned to visit friends to watch the football match between Italy and England. He chose this date and event as the perfect alibi. Lissy staged a massacre. Many people would be out watching the match at parties and bars, making it the perfect time to stage the robbery. After dinner, the couple put the children to bed. Lissy said goodnight to them. The couple then had sex in the living room. Around 11 p.m., Lissy told his wife that he was going to visit friends. Instead of getting dressed, he went into the kitchen in just his underwear and grabbed the largest knife in the house. He returned to the living room where Catherine was watching TV and talking to him. Lissy then approached her from behind and stabbed her in the neck, thinking that Catherine would die instantly. However, she got up and ran away. After a few steps, he caught up with her and continued stabbing her repeatedly without stopping. After stabbing Catherine 5 times deep into her chest and abdomen until she showed no signs of life, he then went into his eldest daughter's room. Despite the noise and the slightly open door, she was still fast asleep. He approached her and stabbed her once in the neck. Next, Lissy entered the room of their second child, who was 20 months old at the time. Like his sister, little boy slept soundly. Little boy also died from a stab wound to the neck. However, Lissy's plan was not over yet. He went down to the basement where the bathroom was located. There, he showered to wash away any evidence of the triple murder and got dressed. Unfortunately for him, he made a mistake. He was wearing the same panties he wore to kill his children and wife. Lissy cleaned up the house and staged a robbery. He threw things around the house, threw a knife down the drain, and then calmly went to meet his friends to watch a long-awaited match as if nothing had happened. When his friends later learned of the murder, they were shocked, not only because Lissy's image as a perfect husband and father had been shattered, but also because of his calm and nonchalant attitude while watching the match. He clearly showed no concern or remorse for his actions. To add to his alibi, he sent several messages to Catherine discussing the game score. At 2 a.m., Lissy returned to the crime scene, acting as if it were a normal day. He parked his car in the garage, changed into his indoor shoes and went into the kitchen. There, he saw the chaos he had created and even recorded a short video. In the video, he claimed that he had come home to find a robbery had taken place. In the video, he enters the living room and finds his wife lying in a pool of blood. In shock, he screams and runs outside to get help. However, he does not go upstairs to check on the children. Normally, an innocent person would try to help a loved one, check their pulse or make sure the children are okay. Instead, Lissy avoids approaching his wife and children, which raises suspicions against him in court. Lissy calmly explained his reasons for his actions. When asked why he did not divorce his wife to protect her and the children, he said that after the divorce, he would have to pay child support. He believed that his new partner, Maria, would not accept them, creating more complications. He felt that having his daughter and son around would be a burden. In addition, he did not want to deal with the division of their joint assets. Therefore, he decided to completely free himself from these responsibilities. The investigation into Lissy's family murders was straightforward. He had confessed, his motive was clear, and the evidence was solid. The main issue in the trial was to determine whether his actions were intentional. His online search history suggested they were. A week later, while awaiting trial, Lissy was taken for a psychological evaluation. It was possible that he may not have been fully aware of his actions. Experts determined that Lissy was sane and fit to stand trial. During the trial, he chose not to have a lawyer, believing that fighting for his freedom was unnecessary. Lissy was sentenced to life imprisonment, which he initially accepted. However, after starting his sentence, his feelings may have shifted. He declined legal representation and filed an appeal, but soon after, he sent another letter withdrawing the appeal and stating that he believed the sentence was fair. Although it may seem odd, Lissy's refusal was not surprising. Throughout his life, he had never been one to fight for anything. Now, in prison, he found himself in an environment where he didn't have to make decisions or strive for anything. He could simply be passive and quiet. Prisoners followed a daily routine and adhered to specific rules, which seemed to suit Lissy well. In Lissy's trial, the judge found Lissy guilty of attempted triple murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. He has been in prison for over 4 years now. Lissy is considered a model prisoner. His cellmates and guards say that he seems genuinely remorseful for his actions. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Teresa Parker. Teresa Parker was born on September 9, 1965, to Claire and William. The family initially lived in San Diego, California. They later moved to a home in Lafayette, Georgia, where they settled permanently. Teresa had 5 siblings. She was the middle child. Her friendly and kind nature made her popular with all her relatives. In 1984, Teresa graduated from high school. Soon after, she married her first love. After a while, the couple separated in the early 90s. Teresa completed her training and became a switchboard operator for the city police department, quickly becoming a favorite of the police officers. One of those who loved her was Sam Park, born in 1956 in Lafayette. He had an older sister named Caroline and a younger brother named Kenneth. Sam had a close relationship with his father. Overall, he was a kind and intelligent person. In his spare time, he enjoyed exploring the outskirts of the city, hunting and fishing in the many freshwater bodies nearby. When Sam turned 18, he joined the military and later became a police officer. In the early 1980s, his younger brother Kenneth admired him and chose a similar career, serving in the Marine Corps before joining the police department. Inspired by Sam, Kenneth decided to go to law school. For Sam, becoming a police officer was a lifelong dream. During his career, he once saved a child from a burning building. When Teresa, a beautiful 20-year-old new switchboard operator, joined the police department, she caught the attention of many of the officers, including Sam. They quickly became friends, and before long, Sam asked her out. Their relationship blossomed and they became a couple. However, some of Teresa's relatives noticed that Sam sometimes had difficulty controlling his jokes and could easily get angry. Both Teresa and Sam had experienced failed relationships in the past. Teresa had been married once, while Sam had been married twice. He saw his new relationship with Teresa as an opportunity to start over. The couple married on September 11, 1993. Teresa, 28, married Sam Parker, 37, who had just been promoted to city police sergeant. Although the early years of their marriage were happy, their relationship began to deteriorate over time. They argued frequently, and the conflicts were severe. There were concerns that Sam might have violent tendencies. They later filed for divorce in August 2006, after nearly 13 years together. However, by the winter of 2006, they had reconciled and decided to continue their relationship. In March 2007, Teresa decided to end their relationship and went on vacation to Mexico without her husband. After returning from vacation, Teresa started looking for a new place to live in another city, while Sam would stay in their old house. She took a few days off to move and settle into her new home. The next day she moved her belongings to a new apartment. Then she visited her sister, Christina, who now lived near her. In the evening, Teresa left Christina's house. She drove her SUV back home. At around 10:30 a.m., she visited her good friend Rhonda's house. Although she had planned to go to her old house to move her belongings, she decided to stay longer to make sure that Sam had gone out and did not see her. She wanted to avoid any arguments. Rhonda was surprised that the once loving couple were now avoiding each other. Teresa revealed that Sam had always been short-tempered and aggressive, especially when he was drinking. They then ended their conversation. Rhonda went to bed while Teresa went to her ex-husband's house. The next morning at 6 a.m., Rhonda called her. Someone answered the phone, but there was silence on the other end. After a moment of silence, the call was disconnected. Rhonda tried to contact Teresa several more times but only got her voicemail. Rhonda called all the numbers Teresa had used, including her work number, but none of them worked. Concerned, Rhonda then contacted the police station to request a welfare check on Teresa, who did not return her calls. In the workplace, everyone was worried about Teresa's absence because she had never missed a shift before. A police team was sent to check on her at her ex-husband Sam's house. About half an hour after the call, around 6:30 a.m., the police arrived at Sam's house but got no response when they knocked on the door. They then searched the area, looking through the windows. They hoped to find Teresa's car to make sure she was okay, but only Sam's pickup truck was in the garage. The police then went to Teresa's new apartment, but no one answered the door there either, so they left without any information. The police later found Teresa's SUV near her ex-husband's house. No one saw her, even Sam tried calling her many times to ask about her. Initially, her relatives weren't too worried, thinking that Teresa was busy arranging her new apartment and might not have heard her phone while cleaning. However, it was unusual for her not to answer any calls, as that was not her typical behavior. The day passed without any updates on Teresa. Christina had a hunch that Teresa was in danger. Teresa's family then officially reported her missing to the sheriff. From the beginning, the police treated the case as a top priority. They sent several officers to talk to Teresa's ex-husband, Sam, to gather information about the events leading up to her disappearance. The Georgia Federal Bureau of Investigation became involved in the case. They had known about Teresa's family's domestic violence for years. On May 4, 2002, police were called by Teresa's neighbors to report that Sam was drunk and extremely aggressive. He had been drinking all day and was violent toward Teresa. The patrol officer observed a bruise on Teresa's face, indicating that she had recently been beaten. Despite this, she chose not to file charges against her husband. The next incident occurred on April 27, 2003, while they were on vacation in Florida. They were dining at a restaurant when her husband became intoxicated and began threatening to kill Teresa in front of others. She then attempted to leave the parking lot in her car. At that point, Sam pulled out his service weapon and fired several shots into the car. Even after the police arrived, he continued to verbally abuse her and denied firing his weapon. When Teresa accused him of something, Sam threatened to commit and end his own life. As a result, Sam was taken to a mental health facility in Florida, where he was held for 72 hours for evaluation. Doctors were particularly concerned about his disturbing statements, such as his claim that he knew how to dispose of a body without leaving a trace. Additionally, Sam had extensive experience concealing evidence. He is very familiar with the local area, including the least frequented locations. Kayla, Sam's ex-wife, described him as an alcoholic. When he drank, he became aggressive and violent. She recounted an incident where he smashed a glass on the floor in a fit of rage, then grabbed her by the hair and dragged her through the broken pieces. He then chained her to the bed and only released her in the morning when he left for work. He also strangled Kayla and threatened her with a gun. She eventually escaped the abusive relationship by moving to another city to get away from him. The police were eager to solve Teresa's case quickly, especially since it involved 2 police officers, which would affect the reputation of the police department. They began by investigating Teresa's new apartment and Sam's house. When police arrived at Teresa's apartment, they found a note on the door from the courier saying that Teresa's order could not be delivered. Inside the house, everything appeared normal, with several cardboard boxes filled with Teresa's belongings. The police then searched Sam's home 5 times, which frustrated him, especially when they confiscated his hunting weapons for examination. Ultimately, the searches yielded no clues to Teresa's disappearance. All of her belongings, including her money and phone, were left behind. There was no activity on her bank accounts, so the possibility of her running away was rejected. At the end of March 2007, the entire Lafayette community was in confusion. Teresa had disappeared and no one knew where she was. This left everyone worried and many avoiding going out after dark. Those close to her suspected that Sam had something to do with it. However, Sam also expressed concern about Teresa's disappearance. He explained that she wanted to avoid divorce proceedings, so she ran away. However, this explanation did not seem reasonable. Hundreds of residents volunteered to assist police in searching for Teresa. Police made numerous attempts to locate her. Divers searched all local waters, and areas such as underwater caves were explored with robotic cameras. Posters with Teresa's image were placed on billboards and flyers were distributed throughout the community. During the search, police found no sign of her. The situation was further complicated by the rugged terrain, which included dense forests, numerous small lakes, and mountains. The police questioned everyone who knew Teresa. Within a week, the police had interviewed over 100 people. During these interviews, it became clear that Sam had a volatile personality, was extremely jealous, and lost control when he drank. Meanwhile, Teresa was determined to save their marriage. She kept her husband's abuse a secret and did not share it with anyone, although her relatives suspected that there were serious problems in their family. In March 2007, everyone was relieved when Teresa decided to divorce her husband, and they supported her decision. However, Sam's family had a different view of him. They described him as cheerful and kind, and although he struggled with alcoholism. Sam's brother claimed that most of their conflicts were actually caused by Teresa's actions, rather than by Sam. Only Sam's younger sister spoke up, saying that he did have a quick temper and, unlike Teresa, he often escalated conflicts instead of stopping them. On March 25th, police interviewed Sam. At the time, he was not considered a suspect. However, during the interview, he provided information that contradicted what police knew. Sam claimed that he saw Teresa's car in the parking lot when he went fishing that morning. This claim was dismissed by police, as they did not find her car at the house at the time. The car later appeared near the house, but no one witnessed how it got there. He also falsely claimed that he had not contacted Teresa, but police discovered several calls he had made to her that morning. While this may seem like a small lie, it aroused suspicion, leading the investigation to take a closer look at Sam. Sam presented a different version of events. He suggested that Teresa may have run off with her boyfriend, Elvis, whom she had allegedly met on a recent trip to Cancun, Mexico. To investigate this claim, police traveled to Mexico. They interviewed hundreds of people, including tour guides, hotel staff, and local residents. However, they found no clues or evidence to support the story, nor could they identify her boyfriend, Elvis, which led them to doubt his story. Despite growing concerns about the case, Sam continued to deny any involvement in the crime. On April 3rd, police arrested a man in connection with Teresa's disappearance. To the shock of many, it was not Sam who was arrested, but his colleague, Ben Chapin. Police kept the details of the arrest secret. Ben was eventually released and cleared of any wrongdoing. Meanwhile, Sam was fired from the police department after 25 years of service due to his abusive behavior toward his ex-wives. He was permanently banned from returning to the force after his suspension. An internal investigation into Sam discovered explosives in his personal locker. The investigation into Teresa's case took months. Police were initially puzzled when Teresa's car returned to a parking lot near Sam's home. They discovered blood stains and signs of thorough cleaning in the car. Additionally, the trunk mat was missing. DNA analysis showed a sample belonged to Teresa, while they also found Sam's DNA in the same location. The police decided to arrest Sam. On February 4, 2008, nearly a year after Teresa's disappearance, police arrived at Sam's home, opened the door, and were arrested without resistance. The next day, he faced multiple charges, including murdering Teresa, invasion of privacy via computer, violation of public servant's oath, and invasion of citizen privacy. He was held without bail. Despite these charges, Sam maintained his innocence. Teresa's family, meanwhile, continued to insist that Sam was responsible for her disappearance, insisting that she feared him and did not want to return home. Despite the murder charges against Teresa, police have yet to find her body. Under state judicial practice, the chances of the prosecution winning the case are slim. Traditionally, few murderers have been convicted in cases where the victim's body is missing. As a result, the prosecution relied heavily on witness testimony, including Sam's ex-wives and Teresa's relatives. On August 17, 2009, in Walker County Superior Court, the prosecution alleged that Sam Parker had a history of violence against all of his ex-wives and was involved in an attempted murder. Sam had once confessed to his doctor that, as a police officer, he knew how to effectively hide a body. The prosecution detailed an incident that occurred when Teresa came to Sam's house to collect some of her belongings. They then got into an argument. During the argument, he killed Teresa, put her body in the trunk of her car. He then disposed of her body and carefully washed the car to remove any evidence. He then called his friend Ben and confessed that he had shot Teresa and planned to hide her body somewhere where it would never be discovered. He asked Ben to keep this conversation a secret. Ben shared his story just before the trial after reaching a deal with the prosecutor to drop all charges against him. Ben was supposed to testify against Sam. The prosecution said that during the time Teresa was missing, Sam suffered scratches on his hands and face. The prosecutor's office believes that these scratches were caused by Teresa in self-defense. Sam's attorney argued that he did not touch Teresa or her car. Teresa may have injured herself and then cleaned up the evidence and threw away an old rug before disappearing. The defense argued that all of the prosecution's evidence was circumstantial. Sam accused Teresa of having an affair. He even investigated her while she was on vacation and discovered that she had booked a double room, even though she was traveling alone. She also used a false name when booking the room. Sam suspected that Teresa had secretly met with his colleague, a police officer who had searched their home 5 times, but his colleague denied the allegations. Ultimately, the choice of the double room could simply have been because it had a large bed for comfort, or perhaps there were no single rooms available at the hotel. Sam still denies any involvement in the crime, arguing that there is no strong evidence to prove his involvement in the case or confirm Teresa's death. The jury was deadlocked and unable to reach a verdict, leading to the decision to retry. On December 3, 2009, 2.5 years after Teresa's disappearance, Sam Parker was convicted of murder, and he was also charged with obstructing and violating the oath of office of a civil servant. Sam was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 5 years. Sam continued to maintain that he had nothing to do with Teresa's disappearance. After the trial, he requested a new trial, but his appeal was denied. 3.5 years after Teresa's mysterious disappearance, on September 20, 2010, 2 farmers found a human jawbone in a cornfield near the Chattooga River in Georgia after a flood. A search party later discovered a nearly complete skeleton, and dental records confirmed that it belonged to Teresa. Her death was finally officially recognized. The cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head from a hole in the skull, not a gunshot wound. The discovery site was 100 kilometers from her home and on the route that Sam had taken to fish. Was confirmed by geolocation data. This led the police to conclude that Sam was responsible for Teresa's murder. Despite this evidence, Sam Parker maintained his innocence. He is currently serving a life sentence in prison. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Eva Blanco. Eva Blanco was born on February 17, 1981, in Spain. Her father is Manuel Blanco, and her mother is Olga Puig. In 1997, the Eva family moved to Algete, a small city near Madrid. They chose this place to enjoy a peaceful life, away from the hustle and bustle of the capital. Of the 3 sisters Eva, Rebecca, and Maria, Eva is known as the quietest girl when she is with her close friends and relatives. However, Eva always radiates as a cheerful, trustworthy, and wonderful companion. She is also very active in sports activities, and this passion brings Eva endless joy and happiness. At school, she is admired by many people for her charm and warm, friendly personality. Eva is a good example for her younger sisters and is a responsible girl. She always followed all the rules set by her parents, including the curfew, so that they did not have to worry or be upset. However, on fateful day, things did not go as planned. On the afternoon of April 19th, Eva and her friends were playing tennis, enjoying the carefree moments of youth. They had no idea that this seemingly normal afternoon would soon turn dark and sad. On Saturday evening, as the sun set, they decided to go to a local disco to enjoy their strong friendship and spend time together until late at night. Eva asked her mother for permission to come home later than usual. Olga, seeing that her daughter was always responsible, agreed to let Eva stay until midnight before going home. It was late at night, and the clock struck 11:30. One by one, the group said goodbye to each other and returned home, including Eva. Little did she know that her journey home would lead to dangerous mysteries. Eva and her friend decided to take a shortcut through a vacant lot to get home faster. It was a route she had taken many times before, but fate had other plans for her. At 11:45 p.m., they parted ways, and Eva began walking through the familiar dark vacant lot. As midnight approached, Eva's mother became worried that her daughter had not returned home. She contacted Eva's friends for information, but they said they had broken up and that Eva was supposed to be home by then. This made her even more worried. She decided to alert her husband, a tow truck driver, who soon began searching for Eva in town. They were joined in the search by their nephew, a local police officer, and the father of one of Eva's friends. At 1 a.m., Eva's parents reported their daughter missing to the local civil police station. However, they were disappointed by the lack of interest shown by the police, who took just over an hour to file a missing persons report. The police downplayed the seriousness of the situation, suggesting that children Eva's age were often on drugs and that she might be lying in a doorway or on the sidewalk. This clearly implied that they were not taking the search for her seriously. During the night, Eva's father visited the local civil police station 15 times. He was extremely frustrated and criticized the agency for not quickly organizing a search for Eva. He accused the civil police of neglecting their duties. However, the police denied this and explained that according to normal procedure, they would wait several hours before starting a search for a missing person. Meanwhile, Eva's father was still worried and hoping that his daughter would return safely. However, the real reason behind this delay remains unclear, adding to the uncertainty and despair. The search for Eva began at 2:30 a.m. Family, friends, and authorities searched the town and surrounding area. However, the police did not file a missing persons report until 8 a.m. By noon, Eva's family had contacted local television station Telemadrid, asking them to report on the incident. At 9 a.m., Eva's body was discovered by two elderly people, 6 kilometers from the town of Algete, near a road construction site connecting Cobina and Belvis de Jarama. This area is often chosen by young couples for private rendezvous in their cars. Initially, the discoverers suspected a serious traffic accident, thinking that she had been run over. However, when the police arrived, they discovered a much more horrifying truth. Eva had been brutally murdered, lying face down on the ground with multiple stab wounds. She was wearing jeans, a dark sweater and hiking boots, the same clothes she had worn on the day of her disappearance. A sleeve of her jacket was missing, indicating a violent struggle. Investigators believe both Eva and her killer arrived at the scene by car. However, heavy rain overnight washed away tire tracks and other vital forensic evidence. Despite the difficulties, investigators discovered Eva's faint footprints and a crucial clue, the footprints of a man wearing size 42 moccasins. The findings offered hope for justice for the innocent victim. The Eva family was notified by the police of the discovery of Eva's body. According to the autopsy report, Eva was stabbed 19 times in the back and died of blood loss at around 4 a.m. The weapon was a navaja knife 8 to 10 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. Eva's death was a heartbreaking tragedy for the community. The attack began while the victim was still in the car and continued as she tried to escape up the side of the road. The wounds, especially to the ear and the back of the head, showed the brutal nature of the crime. The first wound was severe enough to cause death. Forensic evidence showed that the victim was also sexually assaulted. DNA samples from the same attacker were found on the victim's body and clothes, proving this barbaric crime. The discovery of a red cloth in the victim's mouth was determined to be from a regular car seat cover. This suggests that Eva was taken into the car after being kidnapped. This detail reflects the painful final moments of the innocent victim. However, Since the body was found fully clothed and there were no obvious signs of violence, investigators and police initially thought it might have been a consensual sexual encounter that led to a deadly fight. Eva's parents believe that their daughter was kidnapped, raped, and murdered to cover up the evidence. They do not agree with the view that Eva committed suicide. The police expect the case to be solved quickly. They suspect that an acquaintance of Eva's offered to drive her and took her to a secluded place, a popular spot for couples, where the tragedy occurred. Police initially suspected Eva's ex-boyfriend in Fuente El Saz, but he was cleared after questioning. The investigation then focused on men known to Eva's family, specifically people she might have trusted enough to take a ride with. Nevertheless, as the case became more complex, police could not dismiss the possibility that the perpetrator was a complete stranger. But Eva's friends were adamant that she would never take a ride with a stranger and believed that she had been forced into the car. Adding to the mystery, some neighbors linked the incident to an unknown blue car that was seen in town around midnight following another girl. The driver was described as a blonde man in his 20s. Unfortunately, no one recorded the license plate number, leaving a vital clue in the case untraceable. During the investigation, investigators discovered unidentified male bodily fluids on Eva's body and clothing. However, this information was kept secret and not disclosed to Eva's family or the public. Simultaneously, the police secretly collected DNA samples from men who were related to or knew Eva to compare with the DNA found in the fluids. Eva's father's, Manuel, DNA was taken from a cigarette he had smoked while drinking coffee and discussing the case with the police. Other samples were discreetly collected from alcohol tests or from cups used by the suspect in a bar. Although no matches were found, the civil defense police still believe that the perpetrator is an adult male living in Algete or the surrounding areas. The investigation continues while Eva family yearns to find out the truth. 8 months after Eva died in a tragic incident, her mother found 2 secret diaries in her daughter's room. The diaries were dated 1995 to 1996 and 1996 to 1997, in which Eva recorded details of her daily life up until the day she was murdered. Most of the entries revolved around Eva and her ex-boyfriend Miguel. Their names were repeatedly written in different colors of ink throughout the pages. Near the end of the book, Miguel's name was suddenly replaced by the number 343110, while Eva's name remained the same. Despite many attempts to decipher the meaning of this number, no one has found a satisfactory explanation. The true meaning of the number remains a mystery, leaving Eva's family and investigators haunted by this puzzling clue. After Manuel's DNA was ruled out as that of a suspect, he launched a campaign calling on Algete residents to voluntarily provide DNA samples to help with the investigation. With the mayor's support, in November 1999 an official notice was issued asking all males over the age of 16, about 5,000 people, to provide hair or saliva samples. However, Spanish judicial authorities rejected the proposal, considering it naive, inappropriate, and useless. Additionally, it could stigmatize those who refuse to provide DNA, a legal right without a court order. They also believed that the perpetrator would not voluntarily provide his DNA sample. Eva's father collected 2013 DNA samples from residents of Algete and surrounding towns and sent them to the local court for a decision. The judge requested an opinion from the Madrid chief prosecutor on the legality of the testing. On March 30, 2000, chief prosecutor stressed that only those suspected in the investigation should be tested, not all volunteers. Consequently, only 45 samples were tested, including 12 from Eva's relatives, acquaintances, and the people with criminal records, especially cases involving sexual crimes and knife violence. Time passed and the case went cold. But the turning point of the case occurred when a woman reported to the authorities that she saw a suspicious man at the construction site around 8 a.m., before Eva's body was found. The man was sloppily dressed, walking in the rain without an umbrella, looking as if he had been up all night, and appeared to be searching for something before getting into a white Renault 18. Police considered her testimony credible, as several other witnesses had also reported seeing the Renault 18 years ago, matching the fibers found on Eva's body. On October 28, 2013, police released a sketch of the suspect, made with the cooperation of a new witness. The man was described in 1997 as being about 35 to 40 years old, 170 to 180 centimeters tall, weighing 75 to 80 kilograms, obese, with short brown hair, a square face and hard features, and deep-set eyes. He was wearing a white shirt, a V-neck sweater, and was driving a white Renault 18 with red upholstery. A secret telephone number and email address were set up to collect information, receiving 100 emails by January 1, 2014. In late 2013, the investigation took a major step forward when DNA from the fluid suggested the suspect was of North African origin. Police asked 300 North African men who had lived in Algiers in 1997 to volunteer their DNA samples. A former neighbor of Eva's, now living in the south of France, had a close match to the killer, suggesting the DNA in question could belong to the neighbor's sibling. Subsequent DNA analysis revealed a man named Ahmed Chel. On October 1, 2015, Ahmed was arrested outside his workplace in Vizel-Sum, France, in a joint operation by the civil police and the French gendarmerie. Ahmed Chel was born on March 1, 1963 in Taza, Morocco. He married a 20-year-old Spanish woman in 1989 in Madrid and became a Spanish citizen in the 1990s. They had one child and Eva was 5 months pregnant when Ahmed's wife was murdered. They were not registered residents in Algiers because they lived in the truck of Ahmed's employer, where he worked as a delivery man, about 4 kilometers from the scene of the crime. In 1999, the Chels moved to France, where they separated amicably but were still listed as married in Spain. In 2003, Ahmed remarried a young Moroccan woman who lived near the Swiss border and had children. He worked as a welder on agricultural machinery but struggled with relationships with his colleagues. When confronted with DNA evidence, Ahmed claimed that 2 unidentified men had taken him to Eva's body and forced him to touch her. However, his ex-wife denied this, telling reporters that Ahmed had actually gone out with his brothers, as they often did on weekends. She revealed that one of the brothers had said he had been at the same club as Eva and had spoken to her after she had a fight with her ex-boyfriend. Eva returned to the club at 11 p.m. with friends instead of her brothers. Ahmed's ex-wife said that she and her brothers had not been questioned by the police. She denied that Ahmed was abusive but admitted he was aggressive when drunk. Female colleagues and clients found Ahmed unapproachable, aggressive when drunk, and unsuitable for women. Eva's family had little contact with Ahmed's brother and had not met Ahmed. On October 5, 2015, Ahmed attempted suicide but failed, after which he agreed to be deported to Spain for trial. At a hearing on October 13, he remained silent but provided DNA. He was detained until DNA testing confirmed his involvement. In January 2016, the prison psychiatric unit removed Ahmed's anti-suicide measures. Ahmed claimed he had been forced to touch Eva, denied any penetration, but could not explain why his bodily fluids were present in her genital area. On January 29, 2016, Ahmed was found dead in his cell, having committed suicide by hanging himself with his shoelaces. The trial officially ended on February 15, 2016. Eva's family, despite finding their daughter's killer, were disappointed that he was not held accountable for his brutal actions. However, they believe that justice will be served in the afterlife. Eva's story is a journey to find justice after loss. The community unites to find answers for the young girl whose life was taken. Hi everyone, thanks for returning. Let's unravel another horrible case. The case of Estibaliz Carranza. Estibaliz was born in September 1000, 978 in Guadalajara, Mexico. Her father is Armando, a psychologist, journalist, and author of books on esotericism. Her mother is Angela, Spanish. In 1983, at the age of 5, Estibaliz left Mexico with his parents and younger brother, settled in Barcelona, Spain. Estibaliz had a fairly normal childhood, although her father, Armando, was very strict and not easygoing. Her father's anger made her think of ways to get rid of him. Despite this, he let her study at prestigious schools, and later supported her studies at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. As she grew up, she became sociable and had many friends. However, she also suffered from frequent mood swings and anger, during which she could become quite aggressive. As an adult, Estibaliz moved to Germany and lived in Munich for a while. She used her connections to find work, and she landed a job at an ice cream parlor in the nearby city of Nuremberg. She spoke German fluently, which helped her settle in easily, and her friendly demeanor made it easy for her to connect with the locals. While working at the ice cream parlor, she met her first husband, Holger Holtz, who sold refrigerators and was part of the Krishna religious community. He was 14 years older than she, and a few weeks after they met, he proposed to her because he was passionately in love with her. They soon married and moved to Berlin. Estibaliz found various jobs, but her life was not fulfilling. Right after the wedding, she and her husband Holger had a conflict. Despite his successful career, but he began to insult and physically abuse her. Nevertheless, they continued their married life, and in 2000, they relocated to Vienna, Austria. In Vienna, they had the opportunity to start their own business, opening the ice cream parlor Schlee Cherry on the busy Oswald Gass Street. The ice cream shop quickly became famous with the locals. Nearby was the Iman hairdressing salon, and at the end of the building's lobby, a staircase led to apartments on the upper floors. There was also a basement entrance located under the stairs. Estibaliz and Holger made a large sum of money. However, he asked her to reimburse him for all the expenses they had spent in the first year of opening the ice cream shop. Estibaliz, ice cream shop owner, dedicated herself to her work and grow her store successfully. Meanwhile, her husband Holger has an interest in weapons technology, which causes more conflicts between the two. He asked her to join his Krishna religion, but she felt it was quite strange. In the end, she decided to follow this religion. Estibaliz's business has allowed her to get to know many people, including several men. Over the years, she had several lovers, some with her clients, others with suppliers, tourists, or neighbors. One of them was Manfred Hinterberger, 48, a representative of a company that manufactures industrial equipment, such as freezers, refrigerators, and ice cream machines. After many years of knowing each other, she started dating Manfred in 2008. She decides to divorce her husband, Holger, but he will only accept if she pays him the debt she owes. Since she did not want to pay the debts, they decided to live together in a small apartment. On April 27, 2008, after finishing the shift at the ice cream shop, Estibaliz returned home. Then, she had a heated argument with Holger, during which he hurled insults at her and accused her of cheating throughout their marriage. In a moment of anger, he threatened to take drastic action. While he was seated at the computer, facing away from her, she took the weapon and attacked him. After ensuring he was dead, she moved his body to the bathroom and left it there. She was sure the gunshots would be heard by the neighbors, which meant the police would soon arrive at her house. However, nothing happened. After waiting until nightfall, Estibaliz moved the body to the living room sofa and went to bed. 2 days later, she attempted to dispose of the body by setting it on fire. However, the smoke escaping from her apartment attracted attention, and a neighbor called the fire department. When they tried to enter her apartment, she stopped them, claiming everything was fine and that she had simply burned her lunch. A few days later, Estibaliz considered buying an electric saw. Although she didn't know how to use one, the store staff helped her learn. Upon returning home, she began dismembering the body, placing all the parts, including the head, into a bag and storing them in the freezer. Later, she transferred the remains into empty ice cream containers and covered them with cement. Next, she moved these containers to her ice cream shop and stored them in the basement freezer, where they were eventually discovered. Estibaliz's main motive for the crime was her frustration with her husband, Holger, refusing to move out of their apartment, and he refused divorce. Additionally, she had financial debts to him that she wanted to avoid repaying. As time passed, she continued to live her life normally, and no one seemed to notice Holger's disappearance. They had only been living in Austria for a short time, so they had very few friends here, so no one asked about him. If anyone asked about she will mention that he went to India. The regular customers at her ice cream shop didn't notice any change in her behavior, and no one suspected anything. Estibaliz's relationship with Manfred grew closer, and eventually they moved in together. She asked Manfred for money to help her business, and he gave her over $100,000, allowed her access to his bank accounts. However, he also wanted she to spend more time with him and to enhance her appearance. To achieve this, he pressured her to get plastic surgery, which she did not want. She had dreams of becoming a mother, but since he already had children, he couldn't help her fulfill that desire. Their relationship took a turn for the worse when Estibaliz discovered that Manfred had been having affairs with several other women. Feeling betrayed, she plotted her revenge. In preparation, she took shooting courses to improve the necessary skills. After completing the lessons, she felt ready to take action. To avoid leaving any evidence, she covered the floors and walls of their apartment with cling film. On the night of November 21, 2010, Estibaliz and Manfred returned from a joint trip and had sex. Afterward, she confronted he about his infidelity, but he denied it and fell asleep. In a moment of anger, she grabbed a gun and attacked him on the neck while he was sleeping. She left his body on the bed for the entire day before moving it to the bathroom. Using an electric saw, she cut the body into pieces, this time doing so with more care and skill. Estibaliz couldn't find any cement, so she decided to store the body parts in a refrigeration unit in the basement. However, the unit couldn't fit the entire body, leaving her to hide most of the remains in her apartment, where she covered them with cat litter to minimize the smell of decomposition. After taking care of this, she continued with her daily routine. Meanwhile, Manfred's relatives began to ask about his whereabouts. Estibaliz told them that he had left for Thailand. They believed her story and stopped asking further questions. Shortly after, Estibaliz met Ronald, an Austrian man. He became her lover and the father of her unborn child. It seemed like her life was getting better. After all, she had managed to evade the consequences of her previous actions. Who would suspect that this charming and friendly woman, known by everyone as kind-hearted, was capable of such deeds? One day, workers repairing the building next to the Estibaliz ice cream shop entered its basement to access the sewer and discovered a damaged pipe. The building's common drainage system is located in the storage rooms, which are separate small basements used for storage. As they entered the basement, they smelled rottenness mixed with cat litter deodorant, which piqued their curiosity. They traced the odor to two large freezers that appeared to have been abandoned for a long time. When they opened the freezers, they were shocked to find containers filled with cement. Inside one freezer, they saw a hand and a leg, in the other, a head. They also discovered two rifles with optical sights, a woman's handbag containing a pistol, a beret, and a notebook with notes in Spanish. Terrified, they quickly left the basement. They informed the hairdresser next door about the discovery, urging her to call the police. When the police arrived, they searched the basement and found the remains of two dismembered bodies. One was in several pieces, while the other was just a severed head, all encased in cement-filled containers. The remains were sent to the forensic medical examination in Vienna. During the initial investigation, authorities were unable to determine who owned the basement. This was because the basement had not been used for a long time, and no other suspicious items were discovered. Investigators began to analyze the evidence they had collected. The next day, after the police arrived at the crime scene, Estebalas came to work. A neighbor informed her about the discovery in the building's basement and mentioned that the police had started an investigation. This news made her extremely worried, forcing her to quickly return home. She locked the ice cream shop and put up a temporarily closed sign. As she left, her face betrayed her nervousness, looking very different from her usual demeanor. Naturally, her worried expression caught the attention of nearby residents, who began to mock her as she crossed the street towards the bus stop. They saw her take out her phone to make a call before getting into a taxi. Then, she went to the bank, withdrew all her money, and then purchased a plane ticket to Paris. However, she was never able to use this ticket. Austrian police were waiting for her at the airport. They were aware of the ticket she had purchased, but realized she had not checked in for her flight. Police issued a warrant for her arrest on Wednesday, June 8, 2011, after a search warrant was issued. Investigators believe the containers found in the basement belonged to her ice cream shop, but locating her became difficult since she had stopped using her mobile phone. Meanwhile, she remained in Vienna, took another taxi, and asked the driver to take her to northern Italy. She then traveled to the mountains and reached Basu, from where she continued on for another 6 kilometers to Talamadzu, where she decided to stay in a hotel for a few days. Before arriving, she asked the taxi driver to book a room for her because she couldn't do it herself. Later, the taxi driver saw her picture in the news and informed the police that he had driven her there. Unfortunately, by that time, it was already too late. In this city, Estebalas stayed for one night before taking a train to Udine, which is 50 kilometers from Almaty. There, she met Ivan, a street artist, who noticed her crying at a cafe and offered his help. When he approached her to ask if she needed help, she told him about her problems, especially her husband's cruelty that forced her to leave home. Ivan invited her to stay in his apartment for a few days. She agreed, and he offered her the couch while he slept in his bed. During her stay, Estebalas helped Ivan with cleaning, shopping, and cooking, and everything seemed fine, until he discovered her identity through a newspaper article. This revelation shocked and frightened him. He asked her to leave immediately, admitting that he knew she was evading the law. She denied his accusations. He then went to the nearest police station to inform them that Estebalas, a woman wanted by the authorities, was in his home. Ivan was surprised to find Estebalas waiting for the police at his house. She did not resist arrest. She was taken into custody as the primary suspect in several murders. She was arrested on June 10, 2011, at 7:30 a.m. in Udine, Italy. After her arrest, Estebalas was taken to the police station for questioning, where she confessed to 2 murders, one in 2008 and another in 2010. She used the same methods for both crimes, but claimed that the second murder was executed more skillfully. Meanwhile, Austrian authorities quickly requested her extradition, while in Italy, forensic experts identified the second victim as Manfred Hinterberger. During her interrogation, she attempted to justify her actions, saying that both men, Holger and Manfred, had subjected her to violence and cruelty. She felt very angry about the way they treated her. She described the murders as a response to the physical and psychological abuse she had suffered. Estebalas admitted that she had attacked Holger and Manfred on the head, then used an electric saw. She told investigators that she killed the first man, Holger, to improve her skills. She took shooting lessons and take a course on how to work with cement to prepare for the second murder, Manfred. At the time of her arrest in Italy, she was pregnant with Ronald's child, and during a medical examination, it was revealed that she was 2 months along. 14 days after her arrest, on June 24, 2011, Estebalas was extradited by an Austrian court and detained on suspicion of involvement in 2 murders. Her lawyer argued that although police testimony is considered legal evidence under Italian law, Austrian law is very different. He asked that it not be admitted as evidence in her case. He said he planned to sue several Austrian tabloids for making the accusations against her. Estibaliz was arrested and held in a prison in Vienna until January 11, 2012, when she was taken to the hospital to give birth. After her son was born, he was immediately given to his father. From the start of the trial, Estibaliz admitted her guilt, while the prosecution and psychiatrists portrayed her as a ruthless, manipulative, and selfish individual. Despite being educated and fluent in 3 languages, she committed extreme acts for her own benefit. The defense argued that Estibaliz was a victim of her own emotions. They claimed she was under the influence of illegal drugs and prescribed medications, stating she took 5 different drugs 3 times a day, including antidepressants and treatments for schizophrenia. However, evidence showed that her actions were intentional. She testified that Manfred pressured her to undergo numerous cosmetic surgeries, including nose jobs and Botox, and forced her to exercise constantly to maintain her figure, despite her long 12-hour shifts at the ice cream parlor. Estibaliz alleged that people mocked her, which became unbearable for her and ultimately led to her decision to kill Manfred. The psychiatrist explained that she simply didn't know how to reject men who made her unhappy. She resorted to an extreme solution. She believed the easiest way to deal with men who were no longer needed was to kill them. Whenever men brought her trouble or ridiculed her, she concluded that killing them was the best option. On November 22, 2012, Estibaliz Carranza was found guilty of murdering Holger Holtz in 2008 and Manfred Hinterberger in 2010. She was sentenced to life imprisonment in a facility for the criminally insane. Along with her attorneys, she appealed the decision, but the sentence was upheld by the Higher Regional Court of Vienna on March 20, 2013. In November 2017, it was announced that Estibaliz would be transferred from a women's prison in Lower Austria to a prison in the market town of Upper Austria. She was diagnosed with a serious personality disorder. She exhibited abnormal behavior and had a mindset akin to a princess seeking rescue from a prince, longing for a fictional world where she was the center of attention. At the time of her crime, Estibaliz was mentally stable, as she was not under the influence of drugs and was fully aware of her actions. Psychiatrists expressed concern that she might commit serious crimes again after her release. During a psychiatric evaluation, she stated, "Some part of her brain is red, and when it activates, she can't control myself."